Chapter 361. 10 minutes later, Chen Guang was still as calm as ever. He even turned his head to speak again, his hands still moving. "Brother, who's about to take out his phone, can you please not take pictures of me? I'm a businessman, I don't want to be famous, thank you." The man put away his phone, feeling wronged. Zhuo Jingxi even went up to watch him delete the video he had taken. Zhou Long, who was beside her, broke down. This was unreasonable. He could play Don Juan and chat with people at the same time. Chen Guang spoke again, his face still carrying that indifferent smile. He turned his head to the side and grinned. "See, there's nothing great about playing the piano, it's just that I'm not interested in it. It's getting a bit boring. Xiao Cici, take out your phone, I want to read the second season of Report Boss." When Zhuo Jingxi placed her phone on the piano and Chen Guang laughed while playing the piano and watching Report Boss, Zhou Long completely broke down. From beginning to end, he played casually, but the tune he played was as steady as a CD player. "I'll tolerate this. But you're playing while watching a funny web drama, you're insulting art. You're insulting my character. I can't tolerate this." But Zhou Long knew that he couldn't do what Chen Guang did. Even when Chen Guang finally pressed the last note and got up to hug Zhuo Jingxi again, he still hadn't regained his composure. Although father and mother Zhuo didn't know much about music, just by looking at Zhou Long's shocked expression, they knew who was better and who was worse. Although they didn't know why, this Chen Guang seemed to be much better at playing the piano than Zhou Long. Looking at Zhuo Jingxi's timid and helpless appearance from beginning to end, the two elders found a reason to overcome this hurdle in their hearts. Young people's futures should be decided by young people themselves. Perhaps this was ironic and ridiculous, but if father and mother Zhuo didn't think this way, they couldn't explain the sudden change in their attitudes towards Chen Guang. This was an ugly way of thinking, but it was more practical. Zhou Long turned around in a daze and looked at the two elders with pleading eyes. The two elders awkwardly turned their faces to the side. They really did not want to face Zhou Long's plea. "Uncle, Auntie, are you guys just going to watch as that brat, Chen Guang, and Jingxi are hugging each other?" Zhou Long questioned. Father Zhuo and mother Zhuo didn't answer him, but some of the people who had been watching the show couldn't help but burst out laughing. This chuckle was long and meaningful. Papa Zhuo was so embarrassed that his face was as red as blood. Mama Zhuo, after all, was someone who had seen the world. "Little Zhou, there's nothing we can do, right? As you can see, Jingxi really likes Chen Guang. As elders, we have to respect the young people's own ideas. Auntie. You." Mother Zhuo's skills were still profound. Although it was difficult to deal with Chen Guang, against Zhuo Long, this sentence was enough to make him despair. The same plot, different reasons, but mother Zhuo had a similar goal. The only difference was that mother Zhuo had always been on his side, but now she was supporting Chen Guang. Zhou Long finally understood Zhuo Jingxi's helplessness. It was undeniable that he might really like Zhuo Jingxi. Now that he was successful in his own field, he was still determined to come back and marry Zhuo Jingxi. Using father Zhuo and mother Zhuo's coercion to force Zhuo Jingxi to submit wasn't a very honorable method. Wanting to treat her as a canary wasn't a good starting point. His moral integrity of going out to buy a car and quickly hooking up with a female salesperson was shattered to the ground. Normally, he did use his fame and power to sleep with some female students or new artists who were eager to advance. But in the end, he really wanted to marry Zhuo Jingxi. If it wasn't for Chen Guang, he might have succeeded today. But now, he had become a pitiful stray dog. In front of him was a chance to make a comeback. That was to sit on the piano and play a section of Recollections of Don Juan, in his best condition to prove that he was a professional pianist. But he didn't dare. "Little Zhou, forget it. You can't force it. Papa Zhuo walked up to him. Zhou Long couldn't remember how many times he had heard this sentence today, but it was the first time Papa Zhuo said it. It had a deeper meaning. You'll regret it. He finally broke down and pointed at Chen Guang. This brat is definitely not the best man for Jingxi. You'll regret it. Are you threatening me? Chen Guang's face darkened. Zhou Long took 2 steps back, his heart trembling. I'm not threatening you. But you're worse than me. No matter how bad I am, I still love Jingxi with all my heart. You're just playing with her. I can't feel any feelings from the way you look at her. Zhou Long was right. Chen Guang just happened to be at the right time today. From the beginning, he had only planned to help Zhuo Jingxi put on this show. Unfortunately, his acting was a little disappointing to the audience. So what? You can't have a double standard. In your world, money is enough. In my world, it should be the same, right? Chen Guang shrugged. In terms of money, you lost. In terms of playing the piano, you also lost. In terms of position in Zhuo Jingxi's heart, you lost completely. Now, in terms of importance to the 2 elders, you lost completely. That's right, I want to trample on you from every angle. His words sounded a little shameless, but Papa Zhuo and Papa Zhuo didn't refute him. Zhuo Jingxi felt a little sad, but also relieved. After Chen Guang's mess, she was indeed free from now on. Unless, Chen Guang really wanted her. With that thought, she turned her head to look at Chen Guang in fright, only to find him winking mischievously at her. Zhuo Jingxi laughed inwardly. This guy. Forget it. I don't care about him. I'm just overthinking things. The human heart was really complicated. She felt a little disappointed. In the end, Zhou Long didn't say anything more. He turned around and left. At that moment, it was useless for him to say anything. Seeing Zhou Long leave with his tail between his legs, the show came to an end. The few people who were still watching the show went back to their own business. The family of 4 sat in the VIP resting area of the 4S store and waited for a while. There was still some time before the staff went to the vehicle management office to prepare the household registration. Mama Zhuo had a fake warm smile on her face. She leaned over and said, "Little Chen, when do you plan to settle your marriage with Xiaoxi?" Chen Guang waved his hand. "Auntie, don't say that. It's not set in stone yet." "What? What do you mean?" Mama Zhuo looked confused. Chen Guang chuckled. He planned to hit them in the head. It didn't matter if his acting was bad, as long as the lines were good. Anyway, he had already acted like a nouveau riche. He might as well pour cold water on the 2 of them, lest they went back to pressuring Zhuo Jingxi because of him. Chapter 362. Just as you told me before, Auntie, as long as a man is doing it for his career, you don't mind even if he's fooling around outside. I'll just say it out loud. Right now, my net worth is in the hundreds of millions. He swallowed his saliva and laughed inwardly. 100 million was still 100 million. So, my career is indeed very successful, right? For the sake of my career, sometimes there are many things that are beyond my control. To put it simply, if I want to marry and have children, I have to be of equal status. You understand. Also, my appetite is very big. If she alone can't satisfy me, then I'll be unhappy. If I'm in a bad mood, my business decisions will go wrong and my career will be affected. So, to make me happy, Uncle and Auntie, you won't object to me finding a woman outside, right? They didn't expect Chen Guang's words to be so straightforward. Father and Mother Zhuo's faces turned green. Even though Zhuo Long had such plans, he didn't say it out loud. But this Chen brat's straightforwardness caught the two elders completely off guard. Shuo Jingxi was almost pinching the flesh on Chen Guang's waist to mush, but Chen Guang's expression didn't change and his heart didn't beat a beat. Mother Zhuo's face turned green and white. She didn't expect him to be so shameless. Uncle and Auntie, don't look at me like that. I'm just like that. I speak frankly and say whatever I want to say. As a businessman, I'm under a lot of pressure. Of course, my sincerity towards Xiao Sisi can't be faked. Even if I can't marry her in the future because of various reasons, I can guarantee that she won't be poor for the rest of her life. Other than a marriage certificate, she'll have everything she needs. Of course, I'm a selfish person. Once she's with me, she'll always belong to me. I don't want to waste my time arguing with a small character like Zhuolong in the future. I hope you too can understand, and you must understand. After saying this, he didn't say anything else. Instead, he pretended to be unfathomable and remained silent. Shuo Jingxi was helpless and had a headache. She felt that asking him to chase Zhuolong away was inviting trouble for herself. But now that things had come to this, she couldn't explain anything. Father Zhuo and Mother Zhuo looked at each other in dismay. They were a little angry, but they didn't know what to say. They really couldn't summon up the courage to be cold. They were the ones who went back on their words. Now that the little sapling, Zhuolong, had been chased away, they really didn't want to chase away the towering tree, Qinguang. From a personality point of view, this young man named Qinguang was definitely not a good match. Who would talk to his parents-in-law like this? But he was really rich. They didn't sit for long before Qinguang remembered the real purpose of this trip. While there was still some time, he hurriedly dragged them to the Volkswagen 4S shop next door. After entering the shop, he stared at the phaeton without saying a word. It was the only phaeton left in the shop. It was already out of print, and there was only one phaeton left in the shop. It took 30 seconds to negotiate, 5 minutes to sign the contract, and 10 minutes to swipe the card. That wasn't all. The 1.7 million phaeton was not a top-tier luxury car. The real top-tier thing was what Qinguang said when he returned to the Mercedes-Benz shop after signing the contract. Remove the logo at the back of the car and replace it with a Passat's logo. I want it to look exactly like a real Passat. Although the phaeton looked like a Passat but was a luxury car worth millions, people often complained that people who bought a phaeton were low-key, luxurious, and sophisticated. So far, Qinguang was the only one who was so bold that he wanted to replace the logo with a Passat's logo. The salesperson in the Volkswagen 4S shop was stunned. Sir, you're not joking. Qinguang's face darkened. Look at my sincere eyes. Do I look like I'm joking? The poor salesperson, who had been traumatized, shook his head blankly. No. That's it then. That's it. Actually, I'm not buying a phaeton, but a longer and wider Passat. You know what I mean. Until Qinguang and the others left the Volkswagen 4S shop, the salesperson was still in a state of complete confusion. The manager stood beside him and said softly, "Rich and willful." The salesperson nodded vigorously. "Quite willful." The manager nodded. "I feel sorry for our out-of-print phaeton." Shuo Jingxi pulled Qinguang and walked quickly in front, deliberately distancing herself from the two elders who were completely confused. "You! Why are you doing this?" Shuo Jingxi looked at him in distress. She only felt that she loved and hated this guy at the same time. He was really trying his best to help her, but his methods were too harsh. Qinguang made a pained expression. "Teacher Zhuo, I didn't want to do this. But if you look at it this way, I'm saying all this for you. In the future, although uncle and auntie will definitely hate me, you won't have to worry about them forcing you to do anything. Other than that, they definitely won't want us to look for them all the time. Out of sight, out of mind. Think about it, we're both pretending. The more we meet, the more your mother is, the more she'll find out sooner or later. I'm completely sacrificing my image to help you. Zhuo Jingxi looked at him blankly. That was true. Chen Guang was very popular in class. With his personality, how could he be like this today? Sigh, thank you. Zhuo Jingxi couldn't help but feel touched. He had indeed sacrificed a lot. Chen Guang grunted. You're welcome. It's what I should do. Please call me Lei Hong. Comrade Lei Hong, can you stop putting your hand on my butt? It's so embarrassing. Zhuo Jingxi's face was red. Chen Guang was unmoved. When you're acting, you have to go all the way. You have to destroy your image completely. Arrogant, overbearing, black-bellied, lecherous, uncultured, homebody, tycoon. These are all synonyms for me in your parents' hearts. For example, what I'm doing now is also very meaningful. But you've been touching it for a long time. Maybe it got stuck with superglue and can't be pulled off. Zhuo Jingxi sighed and looked up at the distant sky. She felt that she had done something stupid today. After sending Zhou Long away, she welcomed Chen Guang. She had invited a wolf into her house. His skin was as thick as a city wall. Why didn't I realize you had this potential before? If I had known, I would have stayed away from you. Hee, I'm sorry. Now that the 700,000 yuan car is under your name, you can't get off my boat. I forgot to tell you that we're not related at all. You'll have to pay taxes for the car transfer. It'll be at least a few tens of thousands. Ha! Zhuo Jingxi felt even more hopeless. In the end, Zhuo Jingxi's parents did not make it until Zhuo Jingxi went to the vehicle management office. They barely managed to hold on for another half an hour before leaving with their noses pinched. Before they left, they really regretted one thing. Was it right or wrong of them to sell their daughter in the past? When he sold her to Zhou Long, he was hypocritical enough and was willing to cover it up in front of his parents. His parents thought it was okay, but out of sight, out of mind. Now that they had sold her for a better price, they could not bring themselves to be happy. They really could not stand Chen Guang's undisguised frivolity and insolence. He wantonly played with Zhuo Jingxi's buttocks in front of them. Staying with a man like this for the rest of her life, no matter how much money she had, would she be happy? Chen Guang watched his parents walk away with a heavy heart. Without waiting for Zhuo Jingxi to say anything, he took his hand back and turned to look at Zhuo Jingxi with a serious expression. Teacher Zhuo, trust me. Your parents will reflect on their actions when they go home. Zhuo Jingxi looked at his incomparably clear eyes without a trace of distracting thoughts. She originally wanted to scold him, but she couldn't say a single word. After a while, she only sighed and said heavily once again, "Thank you." Chapter 363. Following that, Chen Guang accompanied her to pick up the car and drove behind her. He accompanied her, a novice, all the way back to the neighborhood outside Gokyo University where she rented. From beginning to end, he did not make any excessive moves. Until the two of them parted, Zhuo Jingxi was still pondering over his changes. After her parents left, he returned to his original self. He was a little uncomfortable, but there was no more pressure in his heart. Teacher Zhuo, then I'm leaving. Call me when you're ready to do an experiment in a few days. If there's nothing else, I'll come and disturb you. Chen Guang chuckled as he greeted her, revved the accelerator, and drove away in the widened Passat. When there was no one around, he parked the car on the side of the road. His eyes were almost crescent-shaped, and his face was wretched. I'm going to give up on myself. Why am I so talented? I can take advantage of others in such a justified manner. I'm simply a genius. It was a pity that teacher Zhuo still couldn't let it go. Fortunately, the old man was quick-witted and immediately restrained himself when he realized that the situation was not good. Sure enough, he was deceived by her. I miss my void refresh double. I don't know when I'll have such an opportunity again. Sigh. Shuo Jingxi watched Chen Guang leave with a similarly disappointed expression. She then turned her head to look at the Mercedes-Benz E400L parked next to her, and her heart was even more confused. How did I end up with such an amazing student? What should I do in the future? Can I still use the mentality of facing ordinary students to deal with him? No matter what, her right buttocks were still itching, and she could vaguely feel a pair of big hands rubbing it. When she thought of his ambiguous attitude after her parents left, Zhuo Jingxi was slightly relieved, but also felt a faint sense of regret. She didn't want to admit it, but it was the truth. Back in the dormitory, Chen Guang put aside his miscellaneous thoughts, turned on the computer, logged into Dota, and thought about recording a video of himself playing games to post on Weibo. The almighty Superman account had to be operated and kept popular. In a few days, he would look for Lu Fei and see if she had a piano. She could help him record a video of him playing the piano and post it on Weibo, so that those ordinary people could see what a real shadowless hand was. Other than that, it was about time for the Sword Pagoda battle team to start working. Liuli could cheat her father at any time. Who knew when she would wake up one day and be back to the time before liberation? When it came to spending money, she had to race against time to save her family property. Perhaps, after Liuli demonstrated her capability as a God Emperor-level financial butler, he would have to rely on being an internet celebrity to survive. Just thinking about it made him a little sad. Forget it, being an internet celebrity was better than being a little brother on the internet. With the heavenly Holy Grail in his hands, everything went smoothly. Chen Guang couldn't think of what he should pursue at the moment, so he simply stopped thinking about it. It was enough for him to focus on the things that he could do well in front of him. He didn't turn on the recording for the first one, so he was very comfortable with it. Although Carl the Summoner had been weakened recently, he was still able to use it smoothly. In the second round, Carl was snatched by the other side. Chen Guang had decisively chosen a Feng Xing mid-laner, but in the end, a guy who boasted of himself as an expert appeared and snatched Spirit of Ashes from him. After the two of them quarreled for a long time, Chen Guang had no choice but to add this guy as a friend and let him see his recent achievements before he was finally convinced. Without Liuli pretending to be Jiang Luhua, Chen Guang was unstoppable and decisively ended the game with 27 kills and 0 deaths. Unknowingly, after this second round, his celestial ladder points had actually crossed the threshold of 5,000 points. Looking through the battle record, as long as he didn't encounter Jiang Luhua in a solo match, he would win all of them. If he encountered Jiang Luhua, his winning rate would plummet to only 27%. This couldn't help but make him a little discouraged. After thinking about it carefully, he realized that he wasn't the man with the highest level of Sword Pagoda in the world. At this time, Liuli's voice suddenly came from the bottom of his heart. Don't think about this nonsense. Hurry up and think of a way to complete all the previous worlds in cups and build a statue of a god for this lady. It's rare that you're so motivated, so I'll give you the authority to use 10 million yuan. Do as you see fit. I've thrown the money to you, but if you still can't build a statue of a god, I'll let you die a very profound death. F***CK. Don't scare me. Chen Guang was stunned. He had originally planned to do something, but now that she had threatened him like this, he suddenly had to do it. Wait, what the hell do you mean by the authority to use funds? Do you mean you can freeze my account at UBS? I don't believe you. Chen Guang noticed this problem again. Liuli chuckled. Of course this empress doesn't need to freeze your bank account. I only need to freeze you. What you said makes sense. I actually have nothing to say. Alright, don't dawdle. Hurry up and erect the statue of a god. I have a big plan, and it's still not enough to rely on a statue of Ao. It's very urgent and very critical. Do as you see fit. If you can't build 2 statues of a god within a month, I'll really send you into the cup world while you're squatting to relieve yourself. Lioli disappeared after she finished speaking. F***CKU. Aren't I preparing to build a team to get the statue of a god? But the time you gave me is too tight. I can't even make it in time, okay? I protest. The protest was ineffective, and Lioli completely stopped moving. Chen Guang silently raised his head. He first thought of a term, king of anal prolapse. Then he thought of another term, you want to die. He then turned his head to look at the computer screen in front of him. He concentrated for a long time. I have a hard life, what should I do? Previously, he wanted to build a team and then participate in the International Invitational Tournament. As long as he could follow this plan step by step, everything would be in the bag. But suddenly, Lioli threw out a time limit. Only 1 month. He wasn't a registered player yet, so he didn't have the qualifications to participate in the official tournament. The next heavyweight summer tournament would only start in August. He couldn't make it in time no matter what. God! Save me! What should I do? His mind was a mess. After racking his brains for a long time, Chen Guang uploaded the recorded video. He then wiped his tears. Forget it, he had to get first place in the national server to calm his nerves. In the next few days, other than walking around the city after waking up early in the morning to greet his mother and father, Chen Guang spent most of his time in his dormitory. His original plan to be Lu Fei's mistress was temporarily postponed. It wasn't that he didn't want to go, but he was really afraid of becoming the king of anal prolapse. He was very anxious. But in his current state, he could at most fight 5 matches in a row. If he continued, he would feel dizzy and nauseous. After that, he had to do something else to divert his attention and rest for an hour or so before he could continue fighting. During his fatigue period, he couldn't even read the version update instructions, let alone fight the Dota. Although it was difficult, he still managed to endure it. He used to think that his body was strong and his meals were delicious, but in the end, he underestimated the power of the game. On the 7th day, when he walked into the ward as usual, Chen Guoli was shocked by his 2 huge dark circles and slightly raised cheekbones. It was as if he had seen a ghost. What made Chen Guang's head hurt even more was that Chen Guoli didn't interrogate him about what he had been busy with in the dormitory recently. Instead, he patted his shoulder with tears streaming down his face. Son, it's been hard on you. It seems that the folk remedy I made last time still can't hold on. As Chen Guoli spoke, he took a deep puff of his cigarette and added, it's too scary. Celebrities nowadays are really too scary. Ah. Wait a minute. Dad, what are you thinking about again? His dad's thoughts were too broad, and Chen Guang couldn't take it. Chen Guang snorted, yeah, see that big hole in the sky? I did it. Spit it out if you have something to say. Say it clearly. You don't know what's going on. Ban Yangzi's voice sounded terrified. If you keep me guessing, you'd better come to school wearing iron underwear when school reopens. Otherwise, I'll make you bleed. Ban Yangzi was frightened by Chen Guang's threat. Don't. I think you really don't know. Recently, you've been playing on your Dota account, right? Yes, why? Chen Guang was still confused. You got more than 2,000 points in 6 days. Did you take drugs? Did you take stimulants to get to the celestial ladder? Banyangzi was almost hysterical as he roared, "Do you know, today I brought a few grandsons from high school to play games. I boasted to them that there was an almighty in our dormitory, but they didn't believe me, which made me so angry. I opened up your record and wanted to watch it. Do you know how I felt at that time?" Then Bai Nyangzi took a deep breath and shouted, "At that time, I felt like I was in heaven. You actually got 7,254 points. Chen Guang pouted. All right, I thought it was something big. That Jiangliuwa seems to have 8,800 points, right? My 7,000 points is nothing, it's still too early. I've been bored in the dormitory these past few days, so I played a little more. It's normal to get points, what's there to make a fuss about? Hee hee." For a moment, Bai Nyangzi was speechless. Yes. It's normal to get more points, but why don't you King look at your own battle record? I've counted it for you. Up till now, you have 99 consecutive victories. Today, I don't know who also found out about this and posted your battle record on the internet. Tieba and SG have exploded, alright. Ha! 99 consecutive wins. Chen Guang hadn't noticed it himself, but after hearing Bai Nyangzi's words, he suddenly realized that he hadn't lost in a long time. 99 consecutive wins in the celestial ladder, you're really going against the heavens. On the other side, Bai Nyangzi was still shouting in shock. But Chen Guang wasn't in the mood to listen to him anymore. Alright, I'll go back to the dormitory to see what's going on. Not long after he hung up, Lin Jingwei called again, and like Bai Nyangzi, he said, "I'm going to kneel to you, I don't even want to kneel to you." Chen Guang felt like he couldn't catch his breath from the wind that the two of them brought. Before he entered the dormitory, he decisively hung up on Xiong-er's call. He didn't even want to pick it up. It was nothing more than nonsense like, "Almighty, kneel to me, I love you for 10,000 years, teach me when you're free." When he reached the dormitory, he turned on the computer to take a look. Sure enough, the rhythm was flying. In this kind of MOBA esports game, there was often an almost metaphysical 50% win rate law in the matchmaking mode. Anyone who could break the 50% win rate law was an expert who could continuously increase their score. Apart from the equally abnormal Jiangliuwa, the current strongest player with 8,500 points had a win rate as high as 61%. But Chen Guang hadn't lost a match since last month, which meant that in this month, his win rate was 100%. Dota was a team game, and even the strongest player couldn't beat his deceptive teammates. After a lot of matches, there would always be a lot of bottomless pits of teammates. Many times, when the match was intense, victory or defeat was often decided by a single thought, and there was a lot of chance involved. Even the best player in a fish pond would accidentally step into a pit, and when he pulled himself out, his legs would be full of feces, and he would drown in the fish pond. Of course, according to the historical records, there was indeed a Korean professional player who had a terrifying record of 105 consecutive wins. But the opponent's winning streak was interspersed with a lot of ordinary matches, professional matches where both sides crushed each other's strength, as well as all kinds of group training matches. Moreover, the authenticity of these records was questionable. On the other hand, Chen Guang's 99 consecutive victories were clearly displayed in the records. Everyone could look it up on the website, and they could even watch the recordings of each match. This was really scary. In 6 days, he had gone from 5,000 points to 7,200 points. Withstanding several times when his teammates dropped the game midway, internal conflicts, and when he accidentally filmed himself with a live streamer, the other side peeked at him the whole time, and so on, he had achieved an incredible 99 consecutive wins. Every match was an indisputable victory. Whether it was on Tieba or the Super Game Forum, it had completely exploded. At first, some people had questioned whether this brother was a super point collector, but when someone unearthed the highlights behind his ID, the direction of public opinion changed, and everyone agreed that he was indeed a hidden expert with an unknown identity. Then, more and more people watched each of his matches, and countless players discovered that this guy was simply a natural source material. Almost every match could be used as a source material. He showed off to the extreme, always showing off the whole audience, and never failing. The public opinion became one-sided, and there was only one word to describe him: animal. An indisputable animal. Chapter 365. After taking a stroll around the internet, Chen Guang felt an indescribable sense of satisfaction in his heart. As a noob who used to have 3,000 points, it was impossible for him not to feel proud after playing blindly for a few days. He logged into his account and saw that there were so many friend requests that he couldn't count them all. However, Chen Guang didn't have many friends to begin with. At this time, he didn't know many of these friend requests, so he wasn't interested. He entered the rhythm of playing solo every day. Now that he had over 7,000 points, he could gradually enter the circle of professional players. Chen Guang began to ponder whether he should take the initiative to add 2 professional players as friends and see if he could take the opportunity to sneak into their circle in one go. Right now, this brother's rhythm is flying everywhere. I'm a proper celebrity. It shouldn't be too much to add them as friends, right? After the match was successfully made, he loaded the game and entered the player selection interface. Immediately, one of his teammates shouted, F***CK. Brother Lian Sheng. Chen Guang turned on the microphone and chuckled, hey, no one wants to fight me for the mid lane, right? Actually, there was another professional player in the team with 8,000 points. I'll let you win. Chen Guang was happy. Thank you. If I win this match, I'll have a 100 win streak. That professional player was quite generous. He immediately said, then I'll turn off the live stream. After choosing his champion and entering, the people on the other side sent him messages. Some people mocked Chen Guang's winning streak record, some said to add him as a friend after the match, and some asked why the professional player's live stream had been cut off. Chen Guang's teammates simply replied a few words and then fully focused on the game. This time, he had really met a good teammate. They knew that he was aiming for a 100 win streak, so they were all very serious. The number of spectators outside of the game continued to rise. There was no need to say who dared to go easy on others in this match. Needless to say, the pace of the forum immediately soared. The entire match was quite intense. The opponent was also a pro player with 8,000 points and 4 pro players with 7,000 points. The two sides fought back and forth. Fortunately, Chen Guang, a person with low HP but high HP, acted as the last straw that broke the camel's back. The final score was 73-69. The two sides fought for 90 minutes and exchanged bases. Chen Guang was ahead by 100 HP and successfully destroyed the enemy's base. He finally won this unprecedented battle, allowing the tens of thousands of spectators to enjoy an amazing visual feast. Before anyone realized it, many streamers on the live streaming platform had already put up the title, "Let's witness an unprecedented 100-game winning streak in the Celestial Stairway Tournament." As a gimmick, he treated this random game as if it was a competition. With 18 kills, 3 deaths, and 14 assists, Chen Guang handed in a satisfactory answer sheet for his 100-game winning streak. After the match, Chen Guang added the pro player who had given him the mid laner as a friend. He asked him about official competitions and then completely gave up on the idea of forming a team. There was no time. There was no time at all. He did not expect the current professional esports circle to be so formal. There was a fixed time for players to register. Furthermore, there was a dead not like the transfer period. This was not a problem that could be solved with money. In other words, this was not something that Chen Guang could change with his current net worth. He was still not rich enough. However, Azure rarely asked him to do something so clearly. Now that she had asked, Chen Guang did not dare to fool her. If he said 1 month, he definitely could not be late by a day. This gave him a headache and he did not dare to relax. At the same time, after the match, he went to the forums in Chiba again. This time, it was a complete explosion. From 99 consecutive wins to 100 consecutive wins, even if it was just one more win, it was a qualitative change from double digits to triple digits. The sensation that it caused on the internet was on a completely different level. Yesterday, only 1/3 of the posts on the forums in Chiba were talking about his winning streak. Today, it was completely different. Posts about this player named the strongest brother Guang's 100-game winning streak took up almost 70% of the forums. How can I accept this? Chen Guang chuckled. He was really embarrassed by all the flattery. He did not expect that even with the thick skin of the old man, there would be a day when he could not take it. As far as the eye could see, there was an overwhelming number of diehard fans. Some of the words even made him, the initiator, feel embarrassed. What? There would definitely be haters. He did not see them. When he was posting on Weibo, he had already mastered the skill to automatically filter out haters. After browsing the forums for half a day, he put down his computer and suddenly had a vague feeling in his heart. He fiercely clapped his hands. It seemed that he had been going in the wrong direction all along. He always wanted to prove that he was the strongest in the world, so he had to win the International Invitational Tournament. Actually, looking at it now, this was a completely wrong way of thinking. Just like his racing, he did not participate in the WRC rally race that was broadcasted live on TV. Instead, he only created history in the Xiangzhen gambling race that was influential in the underground racing world. It was basically the same for the Dota incident. He did not necessarily have to win the official championship. He just had to become the undisputed strongest player that everyone knew at a glance. Everyone ridiculed God Wanjin every day, but they were just saying it. No one had really done it. In this way, I will take the throne of God Wanjin in the Chinese server, European server, American server, and Southeast Asian server. Regardless of whether I participate in the international competition or not, there will at least be countless people who will recognize me as the #1 in the world, right? Suddenly, he had a goal. He was relaxed and happy. He sprinted towards God Wanjin. In the next 7 days, he really rushed to score points like crazy. His winning streak ended at 135 rounds. Not only did this not affect his condition, but it made him even more unstoppable. When he finally stopped rushing to score points, his celestial stairway points had already stopped at the terrifying number of 10,059. God Wanjin, who had been ridiculed for many years, finally turned from a joke to a reality. The whole country was jubilant. Even the professional player who added him as a friend was instructed by the team leader to ask him if he was interested in becoming a professional player. Actually, this professional player did not know that recently, Chen Guang had also become obsessed. Many times, he simply placed the trash can beside him, vomiting as he played. Originally, he could only play 15 rounds a day, but now he was forced to play a few more rounds. To others, this was a game. But to Chen Guang, playing until the last few rounds every day was completely torture. Thus, he tactfully rejected the other party's invitation. It was not that he was incapable to become a professional player, but that he could not hold on. Other than that, in these 7 days, Chen Guoli and Feng Rong went back to their hometown. Chen Guang happily drove the two of them back in his phaeton. As expected, Chen Guoli admitted his mistake. He treated his phaeton as a Passat and lectured him that even if he had some spare money now, he should not have bought a car that cost 200,000 to 300,000 yuan. He should have been more thrifty. Chen Guang was speechless. A person who spent 200,000 yuan to drink soup had the cheek to lecture him. He had wanted to stay in his hometown for a day, but when he reached home, Chen Guoli immediately chased him away. To put it nicely, he said, "Hurry back and prepare for the makeup exam. I have already asked your counselor. You have failed a number of classes this semester." Therefore, Master Guang bitterly rushed back to Wujing that day. He did not dare to look for Zhuo Jingxi, who had successfully complained. She had been immersed in the laboratory for the past 2 days. She had made a few phone calls, urging Chen Guang to quickly be her experimental assistant. But now was the crucial time to break through to God Wan Jin. He did not want to be a strong man squatting in the laboratory, so he began to look for weapons to climb over the wall and prepare to fight the foreign server. The foreign server's God Wan Jin was much easier to fight than the domestic server. Chapter 366. Even though he was using a wall-climbing weapon and the delay was much higher than the local server, Chen Guang was still able to play smoothly. However, there was one thing that gave him a headache. Even though he could always easily beat the other party into 20 rounds, he could not stand the fact that the points were too slow. In the past, as long as a person's level reached 13, they could participate in the Celestial Stairway solo tournament, but now it had suddenly become 50. It was really hard for him to love it. "Azure, help me think of a way. The old man has thousands of killing skills, but he can only play in normal games. What should I do?" After a day of hard fighting, Chen Guang looked at his level climbing like a tortoise. He had no choice but to complain to Azure. "I can play on your behalf." Azure finally said something sensible. Her figure gradually appeared. Thank goodness, she was wearing a bikini this time. "Nice clothes, beautiful." Chen Guang flattered her decisively. Azure rolled her eyes at him. "Isn't it all because of you? The lustrous feather raiment has shrunk to this extent." Chen Guang had already cursed this scammer who used the godly power distribution machine 10,000 times in his heart. "You were the one who became a prodigal, but now you have the cheek to say that it was for me. What a drugstore scammer." In the end, what he said was, "Thank you for your hard work, my goddess. I will never forget your great kindness. You were just saying that I was a scammer, right?" "All right, actually." Azure knew everything that Chen Guang was thinking. "Don't mind those details. You really have to help me this time. Think about it, I'm only given a month's time, and I have to dominate 4 servers. Although I'm strong enough, I don't have enough time. Based on my calculations, I'll need at least 3 months. Why don't you give me a little more time?" Chen Guang and Azure laughed. It was so tiring to chat with the worm in his stomach. He had no privacy at all. What if he had sex with someone in the future? Pfft. "I'm not interested in your trivial matters. How big is a 3-inch piece of meat like you? When I revert to my original form, I'm tens of thousands of feet tall. When I spread my legs, the gap is tens of thousands of feet wide. When you crawl in, it's like a speck of dust. I don't even feel anything. Holy shit. Was there anything in this world that could hurt a man more than this? No. Absolutely not. It's my loss," said Yi Futian. "It's good that you know how powerful you are. Don't think that I'm interested in your trivial matters. Alright, let's put the matter of the Celestial Stairway aside for now. I'm personally playing for you. You're really giving me a hard life. It's bad enough that I'm your butler, but I actually have to help you level up in the game. I'm really a father and a mother at the same time, dragging you along with me. I'm really tired. But I'll say this up front. If I'm busy with this, I won't have time to sort out my business. If the investment fails, it'll be your own fault. Lioli said with a straight face. In fact, she was thinking that she seemed to have boasted a little too much. It wasn't easy to be the butler of the Celestial Emperor's financial management. Looking at the few baskets of TV drama script analysis that she had sorted out and the simulated stock trading that was full of green, Lioli turned her head and revealed a bright smile to Chen Guang, who was in the sky. Forget it. Since it's his money, there's no need to think too much about it. I really didn't expect that a mere mortal's business would be so complicated. It's my miscalculation. Even if I have tears in my eyes, I still have to hold on to the bragging. But no matter what, I have to keep my face in front of this brat. Now, I can use the excuse of being his substitute player to shift the blame. I'll just find a suitable opportunity to spend his money. As for whether it'll be a profit or a loss, I'll leave it to the bell of destiny. Chen Guang also ridiculed in his heart. To be honest, let's not talk about the business you've learned. Even if you watch TV dramas for another year, such as Golden Age and Golden Moon, it's still useless. Are you looking down on my business? Lioli said in a gloomy tone. There's no way to continue this conversation. She knows everything I'm thinking. Chen Guang didn't feel good at all. All right, I won't joke with you anymore. It's quite tiring to find out what you're thinking. In short, leave the celestial stairway to me. Within 12 days, I'll give you 8,000 points on the European, American, and Southeast Asian servers. As for the rest, you'll have to do it yourself. If I do it all, I'll become a substitute player, and I won't be able to stand up. After saying that, Lioli intended to disappear again. Wait. I have a question. How can you get 8,000 points on 3 servers in 12 days? That's impossible. Also, do you know how to play Dota? Only then did Chen Guang realize the loophole in Lioli's words. She abruptly turned her head and looked at him from afar with a disdainful expression. She only said coldly, I'm Jiangliuxio. In addition, I can play 3 games at the same time. F***ck. 10,000 mythological beasts galloped through Chen Guang's mind. Every time he had played against Jiangliuxio in the past, he had always been suppressed to the point where death was better than life. So it was her. This was even worse than opening a map. As soon as I had a thought in my mind, she knew it. What was the point of fighting? The old man didn't complain about his loss. In fact, when he had played against Jiangliuxio, Chen Guang had also discovered the problem. In terms of operating level, she was actually not as good as him. The gap was very small, but he could feel it. The reason why he lost to her was because of the all-knowing hook that she used. Speaking of which, her 3 games were a bit scary. Was she the legendary goddess of tentacles? Tentacles in your face, this is called Divine Hook. Do you understand Divine Hook? Divine Hook. You can do it. But you're only one person. 3 games, you don't believe it. Before he could finish speaking, Lioli, who was wearing a bikini, suddenly flashed, and 2 identical figures appeared in the same place. The 3 identical figures uniformly grinned at Chen Guang. Are you afraid of God's shadow doppelganger technique? Teach me, teach me. Every man who had to deal with several girls at the same time dreamed of this divine art. Okay, wait until you upgrade the heavenly holy grail to 7 or 8 levels, then this emperor will teach you depending on my mood. For now, save it. Besides, the principle of the doppelganger technique is very complicated, and it's not as easy to explain in a few words. The me in the middle is the real me, and the me on the other 2 sides only knows how to play games and nothing else. As Lioli spoke, the bikini on her body began to fade again. Welfare of indiscriminate triplets bikini see-through outfit. Unfortunately, Lioli didn't give him the chance. Just as he was about to see the black shadows, the three figures simultaneously disappeared. Once this matter was settled, Chen Guang's 10 days of accumulating points could be considered to have come to an end. Actually, even without Lioli taking the initiative to say it, Chen Guang himself felt that he couldn't hold on any longer. He really couldn't be a professional player. To him, this was really just a leisure activity. Even without the hellish training from back then, he really couldn't be the kind of person who only played games all day and didn't care about anything else. When he played games for too long, it became a pain for him. Fortunately, he was temporarily free from it. After getting rid of the most troublesome and boring thing, for the first time, Chen Guang felt that having Lioli around was really worry-free. Tomorrow, he would go to Teacher Zhuo's laboratory to take a look. If he didn't slow down his train of thought, he would really collapse. He decisively took out his phone and called Zhuo Jingxi. It was almost evening, but she still seemed to be busy. When she heard that he was finally willing to come over, Zhuo Jingxi was also very happy. After hanging up, she unconsciously rubbed the car key in her pocket and took out a stack of paper from the side of the laboratory table. On it was the Mercedes-Benz 400L temporary rental contract. These were the things that Zhuo Jingxi, who had been distressed for the past few days, took out the time between experiments to sort out. She had no other way. Right now, the transfer of the car would cost at least tens of thousands of yuan. She definitely couldn't let Chen Guang pay for it. She had to pay for it herself. Zhuo Jingxi really couldn't afford it, so she had no other choice. Moreover, Chen Guang might not agree to the transfer. After all, she still had to put on an act in front of her parents. If they found out that she had just bought the car, it would be a small matter if Chen Guang's boat was overturned. God knows how many more Zhou Longs would appear. Sigh, she could only try to sign this contract with him. That way, she would feel a little better. Even though she knew that he most likely wouldn't agree, she could only give it a try. Chapter 367. I definitely can't sign this contract. Teacher Zhuo, don't waste your time. I just need to remember this. There's no need to put it on paper. Sure enough, when Chen Guang arrived at the lab the next morning, he shook his head violently when he saw Zhuo Jingxi's contract. He refused to agree. Zhuo Jingxi had dragged him to the office next door to talk about this. Hearing his loud objection, she was shocked. She desperately winked at him, telling him to keep his voice down. She said, "But if you don't sign it, I'll feel bad." Chen Guang waved his hand indifferently. "What are you feeling bad about? It's not like you don't know how rich I am. This is nothing. It's nothing. Also, look at what's written in the contract. The rental fee will be calculated according to the current market price. When the car is returned, it will be compensated. The rental period is about 1 to 2 years." Zhuo Jingxi nodded blankly. "Yes, is there a problem?" Chen Guang grinned. "Then do you know how much a Mercedes-Benz E400L costs to rent?" "How much?" Zhuo Jingxi hadn't checked, so she wasn't sure. She just felt that she should write this in. At least 1,500. 1,500 a month. It can't be that cheap, right? Chen Guang shook his head. 1,500 a day. Zhuo Jingxi's face fell. 1,500 a day. How much would it cost to rent it for a year? She couldn't be bothered to calculate. She knew that it was an astronomical figure for her. Seeing her sad expression, Chen Guang smiled and patted her shoulder. "All right, don't be like this. It's not a big deal. I really don't care about the money. It's you who insisted on keeping it in your heart. Now that I've said it out loud, you're so nervous." "How can I say it out loud?" But that's a car worth hundreds of thousands. Zhuo Jingxi still couldn't understand. Chen Guang smiled. You see, to you, it's a car worth hundreds of thousands. But to me, let's calculate how much money I have. Let's say it's 180 million. This car is equivalent to 4/1000 of my wealth. Teacher Zhuo, how much is your monthly salary? Zhuo Jingxi nodded blankly. More than 4,000. Then, 4/1000 of 4,000 is equal to 16. You see, to me, this car is equivalent to you spending 16 yuan on lunch. You really don't have to worry about it. Chen Guang had used the same theory to trick Zhu Zhifa. Now, he was using it again on Zhuo Jingxi, and the effect was just as good. Sure enough, she was tricked by Chen Guang. She straightened her neck and thought for a long time. When she looked at Chen Guang again, her eyes were much clearer. That seems to be the case. Yes, that's right. Let's go to the laboratory. You drive the car first. You can decide after I graduate. You can either return it to me, or you can wait until you earn enough money to pay me back for the car. Just like you don't care if you eat $16 for lunch, I really don't care how much this car costs. Okay. Chen Guang made the final decision. Zhuo Jingxi nodded and immediately threw a book to Chen Guang. Take a look at this book first. Memorize the determination methods of total nitrogen, total phosphorus, ammonia nitrogen, and CODCR. After saying that, she left in high spirits. In fact, there were some things that Zhuo Jingxi did not say. These days, she did not dare to drive the car to the school and had been parked in the neighborhood. However, there were many teachers who rented in the neighborhood, and even more who had bought houses. Everyone worked in the same school. Even if they were not in the same school, they had some interaction with each other. Moreover, Zhuo Jingxi was a doctoral student and was once the campus belle of Gokyo University. Not to mention anything else, just looking at her appearance, she was destined to be unable to keep a low profile. There were many single male workers in the neighborhood who would deliberately wait for her on the road from time to time, trying to please her. This was understandable, but there would always be people who could not stand it and were secretly jealous. Zhuo Jingxi was not in the mood to care about what was going on in the neighborhood. She knew that there were rumors about her, but on one hand, she had to do her job as a counselor. On the other hand, it was not easy to work with her tutor on a project. She did not have that much time to listen to other people's gossip. These days, because of this Mercedes-Benz, the rumors in the neighborhood that were originally hidden in the dark suddenly rose to a new level. She had just started working for less than half a year, and she was already driving a Mercedes-Benz. Moreover, it was not an ordinary car on the side of the road, but a Mercedes-Benz E400L. How could it not be eye-catching? Some time ago, when Zhou Long came here to pester Zhuo Jingxi, he was seen by others. Although Zhuo Jingxi had never let him into her house, the rumors did not stop. Gradually, the people in the neighborhood began to talk about it. They said that Zhuo Jingxi and the pianist Zhou Long had succeeded, and that Zhou Long had bought a car and a house for her. In the first few days, Zhuo Jingxi was very distressed, but she could not explain it to others. In the past few days, she gradually let it go. Her ideals had never changed. It was up to them how they liked to gossip, and it was none of her business. It was better to guess that it was Zhou Long than to let others know that the car was a gift from Chen Guang, right? A female counselor asked a boy in her class to give her a luxury car that cost 700,000 or 800,000. If this got out, it would really become big news. But even if she put this matter aside for the time being, she still felt that she owed Chen Guang. Regardless of whether she could pay him back in the future, Chen Guang had given her a car for free. In the end, she didn't give him any advantage, and he didn't even get a name. Thus, she suffered a great loss. It was also fortunate that she was a focused person. Even if her heart was heavy with countless trivial thoughts, once she entered the laboratory, she immediately went into the zone. Zhuo Jingxi could be said to be extremely successful in her studies. When she was studying for her undergraduate, she was disturbed by a lot of people because of her outstanding appearance. However, she did not have any distractions and devoted herself to her studies. At the age of 17, she was admitted to Gokyo University and completed her undergraduate studies in 3 years. In the same year, she was admitted to Gokyo University's famous professor, Xu Lirong, for her master's and doctoral studies. This year, 4 years had passed. At the age of 24, Zhuo Jingxi was already standing in front of the threshold of her doctoral thesis. Under Professor Xu's name, she was leading the research team to tackle the relatively new technology of photocatalytic degradation of organic phenolic compounds. Once it was completed, she would definitely take a big step forward in her academic career. Compared to Chen Guang, who was muddling along, Zhuo Jingxi was the real genius. Most people of her age were still struggling with their master's thesis. In fact, a few years earlier, she had many opportunities to go abroad, but she missed them all because of one reason or another. She did not regret it. As long as she did her research well, she could publish her doctoral thesis on CNS, and successfully obtain her doctorate, she would immediately become a technical expert in the country. These things about Zhuo Jingxi were not known to the entire environmental engineering class. She also did not like to show off in front of the undergraduate students. There was no real meaning to it. This time, she had to call Chen Guang over. In her mind, it was a bit like a little girl purposely showing off in front of her little lover. After reading in the office for about 2 to 3 hours, Chen Guang made sure that he had memorized the measurement methods of the 4 indicators. He got up and walked to the laboratory next door with his book. After 3 years of undergraduate study, this was the first time he entered the school's laboratory building. Everywhere he went, he felt fresh. Smelling the smell of medicine in the air, he felt that it was especially fresh. He stepped into the laboratory door. On the other side, Zhuo Jingxi was looking at the data with a frown. She was thinking hard, and then suddenly seemed to understand something. She picked up her notebook and wrote and drew. After organizing a pile of data, she let out a long sigh of relief. When she got up and turned around, she saw Chen Guang and was shocked. During the time that Zhuo Jingxi was lost in thought, Chen Guang had already roughly looked at the members of her research team. Including herself, there were a total of 4 people in the laboratory. There was 1 guy and 2 girls. They looked like graduate students and should be members of Zhuo Jingxi's research team. The 2 girls were average-looking, and the guy was tall and handsome. However, in Chen Guang's eyes, he was inferior to him. It seemed that he had heard that he was coming. This guy's eyes were not very friendly. "Love rival. You're using your head to fight with me." Before Zhuo Jingxi could speak, the guy took the initiative to speak. "You're Chen Guang, right?" "Hello, my name is Luo Jin. I'm also Professor Xu's graduate student. I've been doing experiments with Teacher Zhuo for 2 years. You're the first undergraduate student to come to our group to join in the fun." He said hello, but the first thing he did was show off that he and Zhuo Jingxi had known each other for 2 years. Then he turned around and said that Chen Guang was here to join in the fun. He really did not come with good intentions. Chapter 368. Chen Guang thought that he had just arrived, and this was just a whim. He might not want to come in a few days, so there was no need to fall out with this guy. Luo Jin was very hostile towards Chen Guang, but Chen Guang didn't see him as an opponent at all. Although Chen Guang treated Zhuo Jingxi very well, he didn't have any other thoughts. Everyone was lustful, and he couldn't deny that it felt good to peek at Zhuo Jingxi's body, but that was it. He never thought that he would develop that kind of relationship with Zhuo Jingxi. Besides, so what if this guy had known Zhuo Jingxi for 2 years? The relationship between people couldn't be summarized by the length of time they had known each other. For example, Zhou Long and Zhuo Jingxi had known each other since they were young, but in her heart, Zhou Long was probably no different from an annoying fly. Zhuo Jingxi's mind was immersed in the experimental data, and she didn't notice Luo Jin's hostility towards Qin Guang at all. She didn't think much about it, and called the other 2 girls over to introduce them to Qin Guang. Unlike Luo Jin's hidden hostility, these 2 senior sisters were quite friendly. One of them was called Hualing, and her hometown was in the northeast. The other was called Zhongyu, and she was slightly prettier than Hualing. She was actually from the same hometown as Qin Guang. It wasn't a far-fetched story, but a senior sister from the same high school in the same county. She graduated 2 years earlier than Qin Guang, and was now in her first year of postgraduate studies. Originally, Zhuo Jingxi planned to arrange for Luo Jin, a senior in his 3rd year of postgraduate studies, to show Qin Guang around the laboratory. Since Zhongyu and Qin Guang were from the same hometown, she might as well take the initiative to do this. Qin Guang was also happy to make such an arrangement. He didn't want to deal with Luo Jin. Luo Jin was a little unhappy, but he didn't say anything in the end. He just went to do his own things. Qin Guang, watch me do it once and familiarize yourself with the process of the experiment. Today, you're here with your eyes. Watch first, understand first, and help me from time to time. It's your turn to do the experiment in 2 days. Zhongyu said happily. She was quite happy to meet an old friend in a foreign land, and she was quite cheerful. Qin Guang nodded. Thank you for your guidance, senior sister. Zhuo Jingxi's experimental topic was neither big nor small. Using photocatalysts to catalyze the degradation of pollutants in water bodies, similar research has been done for a long time in the world, but each person's research direction was different. Zhuo Jingxi is targeting phenolic organic compounds. Combined with the current situation of the domestic pulp and paper industry, if a suitable direction can be explored, it is bound to effectively reduce the emission of volatile phenolic pollutants and further reduce the total amount of dioxin pollutants. It was easier said than done. There are many types of photocatalysts, and the research difficulty is not small. Zhuo Jingxi spent a whole 2 years just to get started. The analysis of the catalytic decomposition effect of a single photocatalyst is her master's graduation thesis. Later, she found that the effect of the mixed type of catalyst has been improved, and the cost of water treatment has been greatly reduced. It can be further explored from the laboratory stage to industrial application. There are as many as dozens of photocatalyst materials, and some of the precious metals are extremely expensive. With her status as a doctoral student, it is impossible to maintain such a huge research project. Fortunately, her supervisor, Xu Lirong, recognized her research results and intervened in time to further expand this original master's thesis topic and declare it as a big project. Zhuo Jingxi only needs to be responsible for the exploration of the catalytic effect of the mixture of 3 materials. As a doctoral thesis, although it still seems too high-end, it is barely achievable. Even so, it is not easy. She has to constantly explore, constantly adjust the mixing ratio of the 3 materials, and then continue to explore the optimal ratio, which is the best concentration of the reaction. How many grams of photocatalyst powder is the most suitable for 1 liter of phenol wastewater? This was another huge problem. The effect of catalytic degradation was not necessarily better with more photocatalysts. In addition, if the cost was so high that it could not be applied in the industry, then the scientific research project would become a castle in the air, and there would be no way to start. In addition, it is necessary to polish the most suitable light wavelength for the photocatalytic reaction and constantly fine-tune the absorbed light wavelength to determine the catalytic effect. In short, there may be differences in the effect of ultraviolet light at 400 nanometers and ultraviolet light at 395 nanometers. When it comes to visible light and infrared light, the workload is outrageous. In addition, the concentration of phenol pollutants in the sewage also has to be deliberately explored and constantly changed, from 0.001 mg/L to 100 mg per liter. This is the magic of photochemistry. When you can't find the most suitable point, you may not feel obvious changes even if you constantly fine-tune the parameters. But once you think about the critical point, it is very likely that the effect of the entire reaction will change instantly. Take the boiling point of some organic solvents for example. The temperature has not reached the boiling point. Even if the heater has been heating up, the solvent in the flask has never changed at all. It looks like it is frozen. But once the critical point is reached, the solvent quickly boils up. Studying the catalytic effect of photocatalysts is much more complicated than this principle, but the principle is the same. Xue Jingxi's entire research project is composed of countless random parameter changes. The ratio of different photocatalyst materials is constantly adjusted, from 33 to 98, 1, 1. The quality of the catalyst material is constantly changing, from 1 mg to several grams per liter of sewage. The pollution concentration of phenol wastewater is from low concentration to medium concentration to high concentration. The absorbed light wavelength is changed from infrared to ultraviolet, and the wavelength changes are nanometers by nanometers. The difficulty is no less than Edison trying more than 6,000 materials to invent the light bulb. Modern scientific research, especially this kind of scientific research close to the basic disciplines, has always been so boring. Only under the premise of constantly accumulating a large amount of data can one approach the essence of science step by step. Even if you know that you are facing tens of thousands of possibilities, you can only climb forward step by step like Prometheus. Professor Xu now leads nearly 10 doctoral students. In addition to Xue Jingxi, a total of 5 doctoral students lead 4 other teams, each tackling the catalytic effect of different catalyst materials. Xue Jingxi has been trapped in this project since she started her PhD. During this period, she has experienced several major setbacks. For example, in the beginning, she had chosen nanoiron dioxide, zinc dioxide, and silicon dioxide as the entry point, and had chosen platinum as the coordination chelation material. However, after a year of suffering and accumulating a large amount of data, she suddenly had the idea to change the silicon dioxide to strontium titanate. Now, the effect was better than all the previous 3 materials, and she had to start all over again. In fact, she does not really expect herself to be able to determine all the parameters and find the most perfect point. This is unrealistic. But this does not matter. Even if her entire project is a complete failure, as long as she can sort out a large amount of her own data, make a data curve, and submit it to international scientific journals, she can also obtain a large SCI impact factor. Even if it is a failed research, it is equivalent to eliminating the possibility of failure for others. It is still a scientific research result and can also be completed as a doctoral thesis. If there is really someone in the world who can try all photocatalysts, find the most perfect ratio from dozens of materials, and then determine the reaction concentration of phenolic wastewater, absorbed light wavelength, reaction time, and other parameters, and find the reaction conditions that can break the chain of phenolic organic compounds at the lowest cost and the highest efficiency, it would not be too much to give a Nobel Prize. But obviously, this is not something that can be achieved overnight. In the process of research, luck is off the charts, or rather, more manpower and material resources. After dozens of teams work together and constantly fine-tune the parameters, they can generally find a direction that can be applied on an industrial scale. Then, they can almost produce a product. Perhaps it is still far from perfect, but this half-baked product can also be taken out to make a mixed liquid photocatalyst fluid and sold on the market. What awaits the project team will be amazing profits, and at the same time, it can open up the difficult situation of phenolic pollutants in the country. The scope that Chen Guang can participate in now is a little further. In the corner of the huge laboratory, there is a set of biochemical treatment simulator. In this simulator, it can generally reflect the biodegradability of phenolic pollutants after the chain is broken. This is the smallest point in the scope of industrial application. This is actually Zhuo Jingxi's worst-case scenario. If she really can't make a breakthrough in the general direction, then she will start from a small point and specifically implement the process of microbial biochemical reactions. Phenolic pollutants have an inhibitory effect on the activity of the core factors in biochemical treatment. After part of the chain is broken, the activity of the microorganisms can be increased, and the biochemical treatment effect can be further improved. The exploration of this matter is almost enough to write a paper. This was how basic scientific research was like. A big topic could be written from different perspectives. As long as it had something to say, it could prove something or disprove something, and it could be considered a scientific achievement. As long as your paper can be published in a journal and recognized, it is considered that you have a certain academic influence in the discipline. Neither Xu Lirong nor Zhuo Jingxi expected to really complete this great research. However, in the process of research, Zhuo Jingxi alone has published more than 10 papers in foreign journals, an average of one every 2 months. The doctoral leaders of the other 4 groups are not much worse than Zhuo Jingxi. In addition, the Photocatalyst Environmental Protection Application Laboratory of Gokyo University, which is composed of 5 groups, passed the selection and became one of the only 3 national key laboratories of Gokyo University. As for whether the real product can be produced, no one has much hope. Even the internationally renowned large scientific research institutions have invested a lot of manpower and material resources in the past few years. In April 2015, Tokyo University announced that they have really explored a usable photocatalyst water purification technology, but it is still a long way from widespread application. The reason why the country supports this laboratory is also very simple. Professor Xu Lirong, the discipline leader, is currently working here. Professor Xu has gone further than others in this research, and there is hope for the level of scientific research to catch up with the international advanced level. Industrial application may be 10 years later, but if they don't do it now, they will never catch up with foreign countries. This is something that they know is impossible, but they have to do it. This is the norm of modern scientific research. It is precisely because there are thousands of people quietly doing this kind of thankless work that human science and technology can continue to advance. The advancement of basic scientific research is particularly difficult, but once there is a substantial result, it can really take a big step forward. Taking Edison as an example, before the discovery that tungsten filament can be used to make incandescent lamps, most people in the world had to live in darkness at night. However, with the birth of incandescent lamps, in just a few years, thousands of households were illuminated. Some people rose to the sky in a single step in difficult exploration, but one success is built on the bones of thousands of people. More people spend their lives in obscurity. Under Zhong Yu's constant help and introduction, Chen Guang spent 5 days to measure the ammonia nitrogen, total phosphorus, total nitrogen, and CODCR of the wastewater before and after the biochemical treatment. At the same time, he also gained a deeper understanding of how terrifying Zhuo Jingxi's actions were. He couldn't help but be in awe. Chapter 369. Chen Guang admired Zhuo Jingxi. In fact, Zhuo Jingxi was also secretly observing Chen Guang during the experiment. It had to be said that the first time he did an experiment, Zhuo Jingxi's eyes lit up. The reason was simple. Shuo Jingxi had been doing experiments for more than 4 years and was extremely familiar with the operation of various instruments. However, Chen Guang showed a different side in his first attempt. His hands were really too steady and fast. The experiment to determine the concentration of ammonia, nitrogen, and total phosphorus was not very technical. In actual operation, it was just holding a pipette gun and constantly moving the constant temperature heater and water bath pot. The main work involved the addition of sulfuric acid, hydrochloric acid, and other chemicals. During the experiment, the chemicals were added in test tubes one after another. A fast person might only need 30 seconds to drip 10 times of sulfuric acid, but a slow person's hands kept shaking and might not even be able to finish in 5 minutes. Just this small detail could open up a gap of 4.5 minutes. When magnified to the entire experiment process, the difference was terrifying. However, this was not what made Chen Guang special. He was obviously only an undergraduate student, but his thinking was extremely clear. At first, he was still blind and only knew how to move the solvents and use a spectrophotometer to measure the absorbance. After watching Zhong Yu do it once, he could calculate the standard curve himself. That was not all. On the 6th day, when he finished the experiment and got off work, he packed his things in the office and prepared to go home. Chen Guang took the initiative to find her and asked her why the biochemical simulator, which consisted of an anaerobic tank and 2 aerobic pools, was designed this way, and why the ratio of different pool sizes was different. He also asked why the parameters such as residence time and pH value were adjusted this way. When he asked her why the anaerobic tank and the 2 aerobic pools had a pollutant removal rate of 80%, 55%, and 35% respectively, Shuo Jingxi was completely stunned. Shuo Jingxi was stunned for a long time. Her brain, which had been numb from all the experiments, finally came back to her senses. She looked at him quietly. "I've seen your academic results for the past few years. Although you didn't fail many subjects, you didn't get more than 90 marks in any of them. I thought you didn't like studying, so I wanted to bring you to the lab to experience the atmosphere. Only now do I feel that you've really wasted your brain." She was a little angry as she said that. She stretched out her fair finger and poked Chen Guang's forehead. "My heart aches for you. You're so smart, why don't you spend some time learning?" Chen Guang scratched his head in embarrassment. "You can't blame me. The atmosphere in our dormitory is like that." In the beginning, everyone applied for this major because environmental protection was a new industry and it would be easier to find a job in the future. But most of the seniors who graduated early went to work for companies to write fake postgraduate studies or environmental impact assessments. Or, if they had a better footing, they would take the civil service exam. But the other 50% of them had changed careers. They feel that there's no future in their major, and they can't be serious even if they want to. They all think that they'll change careers in the future anyway. As Chen Guang said that, Shuo Jingxi also sighed. He was not talking nonsense. Gokyo University was already one of the first universities in the country to set up an undergraduate major in environmental science. It could barely be considered as an academic pioneer among the universities in the country. But after the undergraduate students graduated, other than those who went on to do postgraduate studies, the number of people who actually continued to work in the environmental protection industry was really less than 50%. Shuo Jingxi said unwillingly, "But that's the situation of others. With your brain, if you put in a little effort, it won't be a problem for you to get into postgraduate studies. Even if you can't stay in school after you graduate, it'll be enough for you to work as a project staff in some research institute." Chen Guang shrugged. "I'm lazy. I've been staying in the laboratory recently. Seeing that you guys are so serious and busy, I can't help but think about some things." In fact, he didn't finish his sentence, but Shuo Jingxi understood. She suddenly realized that the person standing in front of her was a man with a net worth of almost 200 million yuan. It seemed unrealistic to ask him to be a research worker. She felt unwilling, but then she thought about how poor she was now. She was in no position to scold him. After a while, she said, "Forget it, I won't talk about you anymore. Seeing that you've been so serious these past few days, I'll treat you to a meal." "Okay." Chen Guang agreed. The two of them packed up for a while and walked out side by side. They saw Luo Jin standing outside with a book in his arms. It seemed like he did not expect Chen Guang to walk out side by side with Xue Jingxi. He was caught off guard by the scene. "Luo Jin, what's the matter?" Xue Jingxi asked. Luo Jin hesitated for a while, then pinched his nose and placed the book in front of Xue Jingxi. "Teacher Xue, I've been reading a case recently. I want to ask your opinion on this kind of high-concentration wastewater with excessive sulfate ions." Before he could finish, Xue Jingxi did not take his book. "I have something to do today, so I have to leave first. You can ask me tomorrow." "I'm sorry." Luo Jin did not expect her to reject him so easily. He was stunned for a while before he nodded helplessly. Okay. The two of them went downstairs. Chen Guang said with a smile, "He wants to treat you to a meal." In front of Chen Guang, Xue Jingxi did not lie and replied, "I know. That's why I stopped him from talking. Luo Jin is a graduate student who was forced to come here. His brain is quite stiff when it comes to academics, but he is very thoughtful in other aspects." "What do you mean?" "Previously, he found all kinds of reasons to treat me to a meal several times. At that time, I did not think too much about it. I thought he really wanted to ask me some questions, but guess what I saw? Can you not keep me guessing? A candlelight dinner makes me sick. I'm so busy. Isn't this a waste of my time?" Hearing those words, Chen Guang nearly burst out laughing. How bold was that brother of his? He must have watched too many dramas and thought that a candlelight dinner could move a woman. The two of them sat in a small restaurant outside the school and watched her eat like she was fighting a war. She was probably busy going back to organize the data after the meal. Chen Guang said, "Teacher Xue, you can eat slower. Why didn't I notice this before? I still remember when you first came to be our counselor. You were so delicate. We all thought you relied on your face to make a living." Xue Jingxi's mouth was full of food. She said with a whimper, "Pfft. I'm used to it. I can't slow down. Actually, I really admire you. Photocatalysts. I can't even count the permutations in my mind, and I'm about to collapse. I don't know how you survived. I always feel that you may have worked for 10 years for nothing." Xue Jingxi heard him talk about professional things and became interested. She put down her bowl and chopsticks and took a big gulp of water. "That's true, but you have to think about it this way. If someone could really find a suitable ratio and chelate method for dozens of photocatalysts such as silica, platinum, rhodium, palladium, and other photocatalysts, then determine all the reaction parameters, make a finished product, and use this kind of recyclable catalytic reaction material to remove more than 90% of the refractory phenolic pollutants. How much help would that be to mankind?" Without waiting for Chen Guang to speak, she became excited again. It's not just phenolic pollutants. There are also lipids, and even conventional CODCR or nitrogen and phosphorus. There are also dioxins that are more difficult to deal with. These things can be dealt with using the strong oxidation of the photocatalysis environment. Once you figure it out, think about it. Put a photocatalyst grid in a very polluted river, and when visible light shines on it, it can catalyze and degrade pollutants. These things that harm future generations can be turned into carbon dioxide, into non-toxic and harmless organic substances for the benefit of future generations. How great of an achievement would that be? Chen Guang was stunned. I understand the logic, but it's too difficult. I've checked on the internet. At present, most of the people doing this in China are just hype. But you can't deny that it can really be done. Shuo Jingxi was not convinced. We are a national key laboratory. I've already written more than 10 papers published in SCI journals. This is not hype. This is knowledge. Okay, you're right. Knowledge, it's knowledge. Chen Guang did not intend to argue with her. No matter how good the prospects she said were, it was really too difficult. Strictly speaking, just the ratio of dozens of materials, the ratio of coordination and chelation of precious metals, and finding the optimal reaction concentration, the possibilities were simply infinitely large. What was even more frightening was that after you found a seemingly perfect ratio through continuous elimination, your perfect ratio would inexplicably be destroyed again when you changed the lighting conditions. This was simply a bottomless pit. Chen Guang thought to himself as he looked at the familiar figure flashing by the window outside the small shop. Although he did not really agree with Shuo Jingxi's philosophy, she was indeed worthy of respect. Maybe I really will be stuck in this for the rest of my life, but I have no regrets. Even if it's to help others with elimination, at least I've become a brick in the building of science, don't you think so? Chen Guang sent Shuo Jingxi to the entrance of the neighborhood. When the two separated, Shuo Jingxi said this. Chen Guang nodded. If you really are stuck in it for the rest of your life, I see that you have no plans to find someone to marry. You're too poor to feed yourself. I'll support you. F*CKU. I'm still hoping that you can really do it. I feel that this is quite profitable. If you can make it into a unique product and sell it, the cost will be tens of thousands of yuan. A complete set of equipment can easily be sold for tens of millions. As long as the effect is good, there will be customers. Taking care of you is my investment. Dream on. I'm in Teacher Shu's laboratory. All the results belong to the laboratory. How can I let you sell them for money? Not long after separating from Shuo Jingxi, Chen Guang was stopped by Luo Jin. I knew you would come to me. Just say what you want to say. Chen Guang crossed his hands and looked at the angry bull-like senior with an indifferent face. He thought to himself, what a poor guy. Stay away from Teacher Zhua. Luo Jin opened his mouth and said. Chen Guang almost laughed out loud. He did not have much contact with Luo Jin these past few days. Although he felt that his hostility was always there, he kept it to himself in the laboratory. Today, he had dinner with Shuo Jingxi, and this guy could not hold it in anymore. He thought that he had some level of understanding, but how could he be so impulsive when he opened his mouth? Recalling that he actually invited Shuo Jingxi to a candlelit dinner, Chen Guang vaguely felt that Luo Jin's nerve circuit could not be a straight line, right? Chapter 370. In a sense, Luo Jin was really a talent. Reason. Chen Guang was still clasping his hands, smiling without saying anything. The first time they met, this person tried to intimidate him. He didn't pay attention to him at that time, but now he was doing it again. Luo Jin was stunned. He thought that Chen Guang would run away, but he didn't expect to be questioned instead. Obviously, he didn't know what to say next. In fact, Luo Jin had heard about Chen Guang before. Wang Ren was a celebrity in the college, and he was in charge of everything. Although most of his power was concentrated in the undergraduates, many postgraduates and doctoral students in the college had been undergraduates, so there was a lot to say about Wang Ren. For example, postgraduates like Luo Jin, Hua Ling, and Zhong Yu didn't need to deal with Wang Ren, but they all thought that he would continue to dominate the college until the end of time. But suddenly, one day, he disappeared from Jinhuan Academy. After asking around a little, he found out that he had been brought down by someone, and this was done by an undergraduate student. There was a lot of gossip involved, and there were many other teachers who witnessed it in the conference room, so the people in the engineering class didn't deliberately hide it. Thus, Chen Guang's reputation rose along with it. If it was just an ordinary undergraduate student following Zhuo Jingxi to the lab, Luo Jin wouldn't think too much about it. But Chen Guang was an influential person in the college. Seeing the two of them walking out of the office together, Luo Jin couldn't help but make wild guesses. For some strange reason, he had quietly followed the two of them out of the school. Then, he saw the two of them eating together, and their attitudes were exceptionally intimate. He thought about the few times he had invited teacher Zhuo to eat. She had either politely rejected him, or found an excuse to leave after 2 bites of food. At this moment, Luo Jin finally couldn't sit still anymore. This was the reason why he jumped out to obstruct Chen Guang's path. But now that Chen Guang asked him about it, what was the reason? You're still an undergraduate. You should focus on your studies. This is a national key laboratory. You'll only be a hindrance. Luo Jin thought for a long time and finally found a suitable excuse. Hearing those words, Chen Guang's smile grew even more radiant. This fellow was clearly here to cause trouble, but he's so innocent that it's hard to hate him. Senior, why don't you think of a more reliable explanation? I've been in the laboratory for a few days now, so which eye of yours saw that I'm more of a hindrance to you? Zhou was supposed to be busy with the ammonia nitrogen and total phosphorus testing, but I helped her do it today. She was also freed to help teacher Zhuo with the photocatalyst pretreatment. That's not a hindrance, right? Luo Jin wasn't Chen Guang's opponent when it came to bickering with words. It was also because Chen Guang didn't want to ruin Zhuo Jingxi's reputation. Otherwise, he could just reveal the matter of the Mercedes-Benz E400L, and a brat like Luo Jin would be sent flying. He felt wronged. When he was a graduate student, he was working with another PhD student. Later, he met Zhuo Jingxi at a meeting and fell in love at first sight with this beautiful PhD student who was the same age as him. He felt extremely wronged. When he had just been admitted as a postgraduate student, he was originally working with another PhD student. Later, he happened to see Zhuo Jingxi at a meeting and fell in love at first sight with this beautiful PhD student who was the same age as him. Even if he did not hesitate to offend others, he had to beg his grandfather and grandmother to switch to Zhuo Jingxi's project team. 2 years had passed, and he had indeed changed from a fresh and hot graduate student to a barely qualified research dog. He could help Zhuo Jingxi with the experiment, but she kept her distance from him. Luo Jin also understood. His family was average, and his academic ability was not as good as Zhuo Jingxi's. His academic qualifications were also lower than hers, but he always wanted to move her with his true feelings. He thought that a strong research woman like her would always need a gentle and considerate man to care for her. Of course, he was the best choice. He persisted until now, until Chen Guang, the fresher and hotter undergraduate student, suddenly appeared in the laboratory. Chen Guang and Zhuo Jingxi would accidentally reveal their intimate attitudes from time to time, making the stubborn Luo Jin unable to eat or sleep in peace. He didn't think too much about it, but now he realized that he couldn't win against the other party. Alright, don't look so sad. You were the one who came to pick a fight, but you make it seem like I'm bullying you. Let's go our separate ways. I'm only in the mood to come to the laboratory for a while. When school starts next semester, you won't be able to see me even if you want to. Chen Guang finished speaking and left. After a few words today, he had seen through Luo Jin. Zhuo Jingxi was right. His thinking was rigid and somewhat self-righteous. If he really was a genius student, he could be of great help to Zhuo Jingxi in scientific research, and maybe Chen Guang would be a little more vigilant. But with his current appearance, he could at most be a research laborer if he worked hard for the rest of his life. He would be slightly higher than a research dog, but the gap between him and Zhuo Jingxi would only get bigger and bigger. Zhuo Jingxi was a person who put her heart and soul into learning, so there was no way she would waste her time on someone like that. She still allowed him to stay on the project team because he was a simple-minded person, and it was convenient to use him in experiments. Seeing Chen Guang walk away without looking back, Luo Jin's face turned green and white. In the end, he could only pinch his nose and go back dejectedly. The next day, Chen Guang arrived at the laboratory a little late. When he entered the door, he saw that the laboratory was covered with dark clouds, and everyone had worried expressions. "What's wrong?" Chen Guang walked up and asked. Luo Jin looked at him and didn't answer. Zhuo Jingxi frowned and sat on the chair thinking about something. She didn't seem to notice that Chen Guang had come. Zhou Yu explained, "Our atomic spectrometer is malfunctioning. It will take at least 3 to 4 days for the maintenance to come. The malfunction is quite serious, and we don't know how long it will take to fix it." Chen Guang wondered, "Can we borrow it from the lab next door?" Zhou Yu shook her head, "Not our team. The imported one used by the entire lab is broken, and we can't borrow it. The domestic ones aren't accurate, and the data produced isn't accurate." On the other side, Zhuo Jingxi thought for a while and suddenly took out her phone to make a call. After Zhuo Jingxi left the room, Luo Jin suddenly said, "Chen Guang, go do your own thing. The spectrometer has nothing to do with your experiment, so don't stand here and cause trouble." "Brother Luo, why are you talking like that?" Hua Ling, who was next to him, argued. Chen Guang looked at this northeastern senior. He didn't expect her to have such a strong sense of justice. Zhou Yu also looked at Luo Jin unhappily. Obviously, this senior who came for Zhuo Jingxi didn't get the respect of Hua Ling and Zhou Yu. Luo Jin's face darkened. "What did I say? He has never used an atomic spectrometer before. He's just an undergraduate. Did I say something wrong?" Chapter 371. So what if we're undergraduates? Who didn't start as undergraduates? Even if we don't know how to use it now, won't we learn it after reading the manual? Zhou Yu also started arguing with Luo Jin. She really could not stand this simple-minded senior. In the past, they only interacted with each other in experiments. His overly simple-minded personality could be of some help when dealing with data, but now with the addition of Chen Guang, he had completely become a troublemaker. It was said that one should help one's relatives but not reason. Chen Guang and Zhou Yu had graduated from the same high school. Even if they had only known each other for a short time, their relationship was much closer. Moreover, Luo Jin was not in the right. Luo Jin was stunned. He did not expect that in just a few days, he would become the outcast. He snorted and took out a book from the drawer beside him, slamming it on the table. "Fine, you said he will learn it after reading the manual. Fine, take a look. Can you understand it?" Luo Jin's last sentence was directed at Chen Guang. The three of them turned to look at the book on the table. The manual for the imported equipment was, of course, in English. Zhou Yu was quick-witted and immediately realized that Luo Jin was purposely making things difficult for Chen Guang. "I'll translate for him." Reading the manual with a translator. "Are you here to do experiments or to be a big boss?" Luo Jin finally got cocky. Chen Guang had a crooked smile on his face. It seemed that his reputation in the school was not big enough. These people only knew that he had chased Wang Ren away, but they did not know how the feud between him and Wang Ren came about. If he knew a thing or two, he would not have dared to talk about it in front of him. It was all in English. How could he do that? "You said I can't understand it." Chen Guang waved his hand. indicating that Zhong Yu did not need to worry. He grabbed the manual and began to read it. He read the first 2 sentences in English, and it was the old-fashioned way. His pronunciation was perfect, and his pronunciation was clear. He read it as soon as he picked it up, unlike the other students who had to ponder over it for a while. Luo Jin and the other 2 had yet to recover from their shock when Chen Guang suddenly switched to Mandarin. This was even more frightening. His eyes were looking at the English version, but his mouth was able to speak Chinese without any hindrance. He spoke extremely fast and did not stutter. He did not even use his brain at all. Simultaneous translation was nothing more than this. There were some self-taught undergraduates who were particularly interested in English, but unless they were really English majors or language geniuses, under normal circumstances, how could an undergraduate be so fluent in English? Even a doctor like Zhuo Jingxi was far from being able to do this. Zhong Yu smiled until her eyes squinted. Chen Guang really didn't embarrass the people of Lilai County. Luo Jin did not make a sound. He did not want to admit that he was actually very jealous of Chen Guang. His English was not very good, and every time he read foreign language literature and the operating manuals of imported equipment, it would be very painful. Therefore, he deliberately wanted to use this matter to mock Chen Guang. He did not expect to hit his head on the wall. At this time, Zhuo Jingxi walked in from outside and saw that Chen Guang was reading the manual. She already knew that Chen Guang's English was very good, so she did not bother to ask more. The haze on her face eased a little. Just now, Professor Xu helped to contact the school. He said that the School of Chemical Engineering has an analyzer that is temporarily vacant. I can borrow it. Although it is a little troublesome to take the samples and run to and fro, it will be over after a few days. Then, she asked Luo Jin and Zhong Yu to communicate with the School of Chemical Engineering. Professor Xu had already contacted them, so temporarily borrowing the vacant equipment was not a big deal. Brother Luo, you don't have to be so hostile to Chen Guang. I think he is very good. Downstairs, Zhong Yu could not help but say this. Luo Jin was not happy. Zhong Yu, what do you mean? I know that you and he are from the same hometown, but you can't think that I am making things difficult just because you have a good relationship with him, right? What did I say wrong? What's wrong? Chen Guang has helped me a lot. He stood there without moving, and you say that he is causing trouble. Also, why do you look down on him just because he is an undergraduate? You can't just read the manual, can you? Luo Jin turned his head away and did not dare to look at the aggressive Zhong Yu. I just thought that the average undergraduate is like that. How would I know that his English is so good? Anyway, I am not looking down on him. He was determined to act shamelessly, and Zhong Yu could not do anything about it. She knew that it was useless to say anything, so she could only sigh. In the laboratory, Chen Guang finally had the opportunity to follow Zhuo Jingxi to learn about photocatalysts. Zhuo Jingxi taught him from the bottom of her heart, but Chen Guang only listened for a while before he felt dizzy. It was not his fault that he did not have enough brain power. It was purely because he did not learn a lot of knowledge at the undergraduate level. For example, chelation reaction. He knew every word, and he could read the words that were combined together. He could also understand what this thing was about by searching it on the encyclopedia. However, when it came to the specific formation process of chelation, the formation of electron coordination bonds, and the principle of atomic stress, he was at a loss. To be more specific, to understand the principle of photochemical reactions, he also had to understand the principle of enthalpy and entropy changes. It was tragic to say that the preliminary study of these theories was in the course of physical chemistry. As a generation of last-minute grinding king who did not even go to the exam and was still studying courseware, Chen Guang felt that the formulas that he barely remembered were still miles away from practical application. Chen Guang was in so much pain that he wanted to die, but Zhuo Jingxi was talking excitedly. She really enjoyed this feeling. Facing him as a counselor, wanting to be his teacher was basically a failure. She could not bring out the dignity of a teacher at all. Fortunately, I am still a good researcher. Looking at his worshipful eyes, I feel really satisfied. If Chen Guang knew what Zhuo Jingxi was thinking at this moment, he might want to poke his eyes with his fingers. Teacher Zhuo, this look of mine is called worship. Can't you see that behind my sparkling eyes, there is a capital letter of confusion? Teacher Zhuo, can you let me go to the toilet? Chen Guang could not hold it in anymore. It was not that he could not hold it in and wanted to go to the toilet, but his head was about to explode from Zhuo Jingxi's bombardment. He only felt that the sky above his head was filled with complex formulas that he had never seen or heard of before. Her eloquent manner looked like she was teaching someone, but in reality, she was talking to herself. Chen Guang was dumbfounded, and Hua Ling, who was next to him, was barely able to hear it. However, Zhuo Jingxi herself did not notice it at all. People who were obsessed with scientific research would often be in this state. It seemed like they were discussing with someone else, but in fact, their brain had already started to spin quickly, and it was basically the same as talking to themselves. After strolling outside for a few minutes, Chen Guang estimated that Zhuo Jingxi had already gotten over it. He dared to walk back and saw that Zhuo Jingxi had already started to look at the samples with her head down. He let out a long sigh of relief. Going to the toilet was really useful. However, just as he sat down, Zhuo Jingxi suddenly turned around and saw him. She smiled and said, "You're finally back." Where was I? F***CK. Again. Chen Guang hurriedly waved his hand. Teacher Zhuo, you can continue with the experiment first. No rush, no rush. We have to wait for the atomic spectrometer to be finalized before we can do the next step. Right now, we're just doing some preparatory work. Listen to me, each different nanoscale catalyst material has different properties. After we mix these things together, who can save me? Chen Guang really wanted to find a piece of tape to cover her mouth. Teacher Zhuo, I know the principles you're talking about are very powerful, but I really don't understand. At this moment, Luo Jin walked in from outside the laboratory. Zhuo Jingxi saw this and quickly left Chen Guang behind and walked to the door. Luo Jin, did you guys ask? What did the Faculty of Chemical Engineering say? Did you get the lab key? Although Chen Guang did not really like this second-year student, at this moment, Chen Guang basically regarded him as his savior. When he heard Zhuo Jingxi's question, Luo Jin opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but he hesitated. Behind him, Zhongyu also walked in with tears on her face. Teacher Zhuo, the head of the Faculty of Chemical Engineering, he. Chapter 372. Wang Ren was sitting in his office with a smug smile on his face. He had indeed left the Jianhuan Academy with his tail between his legs. But his situation did not become worse because of this. His old uncle did not listen to him and gave him a good job, the head of the Laboratory Equipment Management Department of the School of Chemical Engineering. There were policies from above, and there were countermeasures from below. Although the leaders of Jinhuan School and even Wang Ren's uncle did not want to have a bad relationship with Wu Shan, but we can't afford to offend you, so we avoided you. Since we know that this student has some relationship with you, we will move to another place and no longer appear in front of you. This result can be considered as an explanation to everyone, right? These things were nothing more than giving each other a way out and saving each other's face. Of course, Wang Ren's uncle was the vice principal of Gokyo University. His administrative rank was the same as Wu Shan's, so he had students all over the world. After inquiring a bit more, in the eyes of the vice principal, Wu Shan and that kid from the Building Ring Academy only had a slight relationship with Wu Tong. They were just friends between juniors, and Wu Shan had only helped him with a small matter. If they really wanted to fight to the death, he believed that Wu Shan did not think that it was necessary. They still had to give each other some face. Since Wu Shan did not pursue the matter after that day, the school naturally followed the vice principal's decision to deal with Wang Ren from the east to the west. The School of Chemical Engineering was one of the larger schools in Gokyo University. As the name implied, the experimental projects of this school had always been the most important. It had the largest laboratory building in Gokyo University, and the total investment of the experimental equipment was more than 100 million. Wang Ren's job was a high-end one. He was responsible for the daily maintenance of many of the experimental equipment in the chemical engineering building. If there was a need to buy new equipment, he could also help. This was a lucrative job, and it was very easy. Although it was a maintenance job, what he had to do was to call the manufacturer when the equipment broke down and ask the manufacturer to repair it. Compared to when he was in Jinhuan School, his income did not decrease. In these 2 to 3 months, his income had increased several times. He was also regretting it. If he had known that there would be such an easy job to earn money, he wouldn't have bothered staying in the academic affairs office of Jianhuan Academy and working himself to death to do all those things. Not only did he not get much money from the undergraduate students, but he also ended up with a bad reputation, and there was also the risk that he would be exposed at any time. It was much easier now. He picked up the teacup, took a sip, leaned back on the rocking chair, and sighed, "Alas, everything is good here, but I don't have the opportunity to contact little girls. The chemical engineering faculty is full of monks, the girls who can study in this broken school, alas." Wang Ren wasn't talking nonsense. It wasn't that there weren't any beauties in the chemical engineering department, but the ratio was too low. Especially the female straight-A students. To put it bluntly, their looks were basically below average. For Wang Ren, who was used to young and beautiful girls, it was like heaven and earth. The Jinhuan College is still better. Even though the graduate student who just came is far from Sun Xiaoxuan, who is in Chen Guang's class, he is still not bad. It's been a few months since I've seen a girl that I like. I should lower my standards appropriately. Wang Ren sighed again. Thinking of the comfortable days in the past, he still felt a little regretful. But it didn't matter. The people from the Construction Ring Academy deserved to be unlucky. Didn't they just walk right into a trap? A little earlier, the head of the chemistry department asked him to help arrange the equipment for a research group in the Construction Ring Academy. At that time, he was already unhappy. He was someone who left that place with his tail between his legs. How could he be nice when he saw them? Don't blame me for being rude. In fact, he didn't really expect to get anyone because of this small matter. It was just that he couldn't hold back the anger in his heart when he met a student from the Construction Ring Academy. When the people from the research group came back to the leader of the chemical engineering faculty, he would let them go. But at this time, Wang Ren still didn't know that he was going to be in big trouble. He was still immersed in the pleasure of revenge. "Sister Zhongyu, what did Wang Ren say to you just now?" Chen Guang walked forward in big strides as he turned around and asked Zhongyu. Shuo Jingxi, who was next to him, was desperately pulling him. "Chen Guang. Don't go. Can you listen to me for once? The last thing is over. At worst, I won't borrow the equipment from the chemical engineering department. Don't be impulsive." Zhongyu was also pulling Chen Guang on the other side. At this time, the tears on her face had already dried up. "Chen Guang, calm down. I really didn't suffer any losses. It's just that some of Wang's words were too harsh. I suddenly lost control of my emotions." Hua Ling, who was a bit bigger, was pulling the back of Chen Guang's collar. She really didn't let go of any blind spots. Luo Jin looked at Chen Guang from the side. He was also hesitating whether to pull him or not. In his heart, he was looking forward to Chen Guang causing trouble in the School of Chemical Engineering and getting expelled. At the same time, he felt that his performance in the School of Chemical Engineering was too cowardly. If he pulled Chen Guang over now, wouldn't that make him seem unmanly? About 2 minutes ago, Zhong Yu didn't say anything more. She only told everyone that the director of the chemical engineering faculty was Wang Ren. Then Chen Guang exploded and silently walked out of the laboratory. Xue Jingxi had seen him explode. God knows what kind of trouble he would cause if he left. Zhong Yu saw that the situation was not good and hurriedly tried to persuade him. The moment she spoke, the face of Chen Guang, who had always been kind in the laboratory, suddenly became gloomy and ugly. Chen Guang was pulled by the 3 girls and couldn't move. He had no choice but to stop and look back at Xue Jingxi. Teacher Xue, did you forget what Wang wanted to do to you? After that, without waiting for Xue Jingxi to speak, Chen Guang turned to look at Zhong Yu. Sister Zhong Yu, tell me the truth. Was it really just his words that were too harsh? What did he say? Chen Guang's eyes were so burning that Zhong Yu subconsciously let go of his hand. She didn't dare to look at him directly. She turned her head away and thought of the grievances just now. She wanted to find someone to talk to, but she felt that something was wrong. Chen Guang said again, Speak. You must speak today. He said that I looked pretty good and asked if I was interested in paying him 20,000 a month to be his mistress. I didn't agree, so he reached out to touch my face. I dodged and ran away. Finally, Zhong Yu told the truth. I knew it. He can't change his bad habits. Chen Guang suddenly became angry. He pointed at Luo Jin and scolded, Luo Jin, are you a man? Your classmate was humiliated like this, and you just stood there and watched? Luo Jin blushed and wanted to argue. He thought to himself, what does this have to do with me? Zhong Yu didn't treat me well before, so why should I stand up for her? Moreover, that was Wang Ren. No, it's not Luo Jin's fault. At that time, Wang Ren didn't let him into the office. I went in alone. Zhong Yu defended Luo Jin. Without giving Luo Jin a chance to speak, Chen Guang said angrily, when you saw that bastard Wang Ren, you should know what kind of person he is. Borrowing equipment is such an open and above-board thing. Why did he let you, a girl, stay in his office? Moreover, you ran out of Wang Ren's office crying, but he didn't even dare to fart. What kind of joke is this? Chapter 373. Luo Jin was extremely embarrassed by Chen Guang's words. A man needed face, and a tree needed its bark. Being lectured like this by an undergraduate student in his eyes, he felt embarrassed. Chen Guang. Don't just stand there and talk. Who didn't know that Wang Ren had a powerful background? What can I do even if I rush in and question him? If things really got out of hand, what if Teacher Zhua couldn't borrow the lab equipment? You'll bear the consequences of delaying the progress of the experiment. Can you? How capable? Don't pretend to be angry here. What's the point of being angry at me? I don't believe you can do anything to Wang Ren. Chen Guang suddenly laughed. You're saying that I'm pretending to be angry. Fine, come, I'll show you what a man is. Xue Jingxi panicked and suddenly hugged Chen Guang from behind. Almost half of her body was pressed against Chen Guang's back. She turned her head and shouted at Luo Jin, what nonsense are you talking about? Why are you provoking him at this time? Luo Jin didn't know how powerful Chen Guang was, but Xue Jingxi knew. Don't be fooled by his usual jovial demeanor. Once he got serious, he didn't care about anything. When Wang Ren was still the head of the discipline department in the Jinhuan school and was now in charge of Qinguang, he dared to go against others and even almost beat them up. It was only when Wang Ren was chased out of the school that things came to an end. Now that something like this had happened, Shuo Jingxi felt that things were really getting out of hand. How could she let him go? Chen Guang tried to take 2 steps, but he really couldn't move. He didn't dare to use force to break free from Shuo Jingxi, so he could only stop and sigh. Teacher Shuo, do you really think I've lost my mind from anger? Shuo Jingxi retorted, isn't it? Chen Guang shook his head. No. Actually, I'm very clear-headed now. Really, really clear-headed. Then why are you still like this? Zhong Yu asked again. Chen Guang sighed. Fine, I'll tell you why I'm so angry. On a larger scale, look at where we are. This is Gokyo University. It was 211,985. It was the best university in the southwest region. It was the yearning of countless students in the Dechuan province. He, Wang Ren, was merely an ignorant and incompetent piece of trash. What right did he have to wield authority here? What he did in the past at the Jinhuan Academy was fine. I thought that if I chased him away, it would be retribution for his evil deeds, and I thought that he would regret it. But look at how the people in the school fooled us. He is a completely uncultured person, but he controls the experimental equipment of the School of Chemical Engineering, which is worth hundreds of millions. He is like a ruffian on the street becoming the dean of the Imperial College. We followed the normal procedure to borrow a piece of idle equipment, but Sister Zhong, you had to face such difficulties. In the past, he ruined the atmosphere of our Jinhuan Academy. Now, he wants to ruin the academic atmosphere of another academy. Before I came to the laboratory, I might not have felt anything. But now, I really feel that a serious scholar should not be under the jurisdiction of a scumbag like him. On a smaller scale, back then, Dean Tong vowed in front of us that he would expel Wang Ren. In the end, not only did he not get the hell out, but he even got promoted. Wang Ren was fired. But he was promoted. If such a person continued to mingle in the school, Sister Zhong Yu righteously rejected him today, but what about in the future? Or was there someone else who was in a hurry to tackle a key project at a critical moment? Give him another card. Think about it, do you really want people to lie on his bed for the sake of learning? That is the biggest joke in the world. On a smaller scale, Zhong Yu is my friend. How dare he treat my friend like this? I can't stand it. Today, I will settle old and new grudges with him. In this lousy school, if he exists, I will not exist. If I exist, I will not exist. No matter which school he is in, it is the same. Don't stop me. If I stop you now, I will find him alone tonight. The consequences will be worse. If I don't let him know, he will be in charge of the equipment. Tomorrow, he will be in charge of the administration of the school. While Chen Guang was speaking, Shuo Jingxi had been hugging him from beginning to end. However, she gradually let go, knowing that she could no longer stop Chen Guang. At this moment, Luo Jin suddenly said, "Oh right, where's Hua Ling? Wasn't she here?" Shuo Jingxi asked. It seems that after I said that Wang Ren wanted to be my sugar daddy, she went back to the lab and came down from the other side of the building with something. Zhong Yu vaguely remembered. This is bad. Shuo Jingxi stomped her feet. She was trying her best to control Chen Guang, but she forgot about Hua Ling, the bad-tempered girl. She was also one of the main forces pulling Chen Guang back, but in the end, she charged over herself. Let's go check it out. Chen Guang didn't have much contact with Hua Ling. But it was undeniable that the straightforward Hua Ling helped him a lot these days. A group of people ran all the way to the laboratory building of the School of Chemical Engineering. From afar, they could see a large group of people surrounding the school building. Everyone thought that Hualing was in trouble, so they quickly rushed forward. Before they could take 2 steps, a loud shout came from the crowd in front of them. It was Hualing. She was full of energy. Obviously, she didn't suffer much. Fortunately, nothing happened to him. School of Chemical Engineering. Jianhuan School. The biggest stinky shit. Stinky shit. Wang Ren jumped ship. Wang Ren, you son of a bitch. Eating, drinking, whoring, and gambling. He ran away with the mess he left behind. You want to molest a girl just to borrow equipment, and now you come to the School of Chemical Engineering. Wang Ren, you son of a bitch. Hualing's loud voice resounded through the sky. Obviously, she had been shouting for a while. Otherwise, she wouldn't be surrounded by so many people. Chen Guang was shocked. He really didn't know that senior sister Hua had this kind of talent. Unfortunately, he didn't have enough time to completely adapt the 350 million yuan from Jiangnan Tannery. What a pity. Who is this girl? Why is she so arrogant? Listening to her accent, she seems to be from the northeast. Oh my god, she scolded Wang Ren like that. If something bad happens, I have to go and help her. Don't get involved in this. What if you offend Wang Ren? Aren't you afraid of being expelled? What's there to be afraid of? Who doesn't know what that bastard is? You don't know, a few days ago, I borrowed a pH meter, and he asked me for 2,000 yuan. I don't want to study this stupid master's degree anymore. Obviously, even if Wang Ren only came to the School of Chemical Engineering for 2 months, he had already made a big name for himself. As the saying goes, gold will shine wherever it goes. Excuse me, please excuse me. There were a lot of people in front of him, so Chen Guang had to keep pushing his way forward. At this time, there was a loud noise coming from the front. Which school are you from? Stop right there. Give me the loudspeaker. Wang Ren finally went downstairs. Let go. Hualing's shout came from the front. It seemed like Wang Ren was trying to grab the loudspeaker. The students who were still blocking in front of Chen Guang suddenly became noisy. They are fighting. They are fighting. Chapter 374. Chen Guang's heart tightened. Although Hualing was bigger than the average girl, Wang Ren was also fat and strong. If they really fought, Hualing would definitely be at a disadvantage. He hurriedly squeezed to the front, not caring if the people behind him could keep up. Another crisp sound came from the front. Maybe the loudspeaker was smashed on the ground. You bitch. How dare you scratch my face? I'm trying to catch you, shameless. Not only did you kill Xiao Lu, you also want to harm others. I don't even know who this Xiao Lu is. Get out of here. Get out. Wang Ren's voice was getting more and more out of control. Ah! This was Hualing's scream. They really started fighting. When Chen Guang heard the 2 words Xiao Lu, he suddenly understood. Although this northeastern senior Hualing had a forthright personality, she shouldn't have lost control like this. But if she knew Ding Lu, then it wouldn't be strange. So after hearing that Wang Ren tried to keep Zhong Yu as a mistress, maybe the string in her brain snapped, and she did such an impulsive thing. The Xiao Lu she was talking about was Ding Lu. She was the girl who chose to commit suicide after leaving the school for various reasons. When Chen Guang was about to rush out of the crowd, Hualing was already fighting with Wang Ren. Many students and teachers were trying to pull the two to the side. But Wang Ren was grabbing Hualing's hair. Hualing was also fiercely pulling Wang Ren's collar. Her other hand was desperately pulling his face like crazy. Finally, the two were pulled apart. Wang Ren. You will die a horrible death. You will go to hell sooner or later. Hua Ling actually cried. She did not expect that she would lose control of her emotions after coming here. Originally, she only planned to scold Wang Ren, but after seeing him in person, the things in her mind suddenly floated to the surface, and she lost control. Wang Ren wiped the blood off his face and fiercely grinned, "Go to hell. Before I go to hell, you have to get out of this school. Beating and insulting the school leaders in public, you will be expelled. So be it. I don't want to go to this broken school anymore." Hua Ling shouted. Wang Ren coldly stared at her again. "You think it's as simple as not studying? What you did today, I will record it in your file. No matter where you go to work in the future, this file will follow you for life." With Wang Ren's current position, of course, he did not have the authority to do so. However, if he could get his uncle, the vice principal, to speak to the administrative leaders of the school, he could really do it. Hua Ling's face turned pale as she realized the severity of the situation. Seeing that Hua Ling was scared, Wang Ren, who felt like he had lost all face, finally regained it. He became proud. "That's why you people from Construction Ring are like this. You won't shed a tear until you see the coffin. What right do you have to find trouble with me? Regret it for the rest of your life. I, Wang Ren, am not afraid of anyone in this school." The more he talked, the more proud he became. Although today's situation was embarrassing, it didn't matter. He could take this opportunity to establish his prestige in the chemical engineering department, and also let others know that he was a tough guy, and in the future, they would come to pay their respects to him. Damn it. Too arrogant. I'll beat him to death. Some of the angered students couldn't help but want to rush forward. But the commerce students tried to stop them. Everyone knew that they couldn't afford to offend this person. The movement of the students in front finally gave Chen Guang enough space. He suddenly moved to the front, stood in front of Wang Ren, and coldly looked at him. "Really? You've never been afraid of anyone?" Wang Ren's whole body quivered. Looking at Chen Guang standing in front of him, he blinked his eyes, thinking that he was seeing things. Why is this devil incarnate here? He had seen the surveillance video of Chen Guang beating up Pan Jiang in the Qing Yixian. If he was a treacherous person, then this Chen Guang was a violent person, and a violent person with Wu Shan as his backing. That day in the Jinhuan school, after he found out Wu Shan's identity, he was also scared. Fortunately, his uncle was not a small character, so he was able to hold on. Being stared at by Chen Guang like he wanted to eat someone, Wang Ren subconsciously took a step back. Although he absolutely didn't want to admit that he was afraid of Chen Guang, his subconscious reaction sold out his thoughts. Chen Guang bent down and looked at Hua Ling, whose hair was messy and face was covered with dirt. "Senior Hua Ling, you can go outside and rest. There's nothing for you to do here." "What do you mean there's nothing for you to do here?" After Chen Guang said this, both Wang Ren and Hua Ling were at a loss. After so many years of administrative work, Wang Ren had some ability to read people's expressions. He suddenly realized that this kid was going to be ruthless. So he asked Hua Ling to go away first, so that this girl could get away. Thinking of this, he almost wanted to run, but when he turned around, he found that his back was crowded with people, and there was no way to escape. Even though the people surrounding him were not really trying to block him, they had unconsciously cut off his escape route. At this time, Zhuo Jingxi and the others finally squeezed in. Chen Guang pushed Hua Ling into Zhuo Jingxi's arms. "Teacher Zhuo, you guys leave first." Zhuo Jingxi, Hua Ling, Zhongyu, and the others shook their heads violently. "I'm telling you to leave this place. Listen to me." Chen Guang shouted. "Let's go back, we can talk about this later, okay?" Xue Jingxi still wanted to persuade him. Chen Guang grinned. Are you trying to kill Wang Ren? Ah. Zhong Yu, who was next to him, was stunned. However, Xue Jingxi understood what he meant. He was clearly saying that if she didn't vent her anger today, someone would really die later. Seeing that she understood and began to retreat with the others, Chen Guang no longer cared about them, but turned around and walked forward. Wang Ren was trying his best to push through the crowd on both sides, trying to run forward. In fact, when Chen Guang first came here today, he did not really intend to make a move. He knew that Wang Ren was afraid of him. As long as he was here, he could borrow the lab equipment with just a word. Based on that bastard's bullying personality, he would only worship him like a Buddha statue. However, when he saw this person, saw the unkempt Hua Ling, saw the mention of Ding Lu's death, and saw the arrogant look on his face, Chen Guang suddenly changed his mind. He knew what it meant to throw a punch, but he could not bear it. Wang Ren, a brainless, uncultured, filthy, domineering, and dirty person, was able to act like a tyrant in the Wujing University for so many years. Even though all the students and even many teachers knew from the bottom of their hearts that he was a rotten person, he still stood tall and did not fall. Even though he was expelled from the Building Loop Academy because of Chu Li's incident, he still managed to get a job in the School of Chemical Engineering. This showed that the person behind him was actually not afraid of Wushan. He just wanted to give everyone face and let the matter rest. For so many years, too many people wanted him to leave this school, but no one was able to put it into practice. It was not hard to imagine how strong his backer was. Gokyo University was second to none in the southwest of China. The person who could let Wang Ren cover the sky with one hand in this school would not have a low status. This school's principal had the administrative rank of a deputy minister, and even the deputy was at the level of a prefectural office, the same level as Wushan. The school was also a place to spread branches and leaves. The person hiding behind Wang Ren's back must have a great influence in politics, business, and education. In fact, after Wang Ren was expelled, Chen Guang really wanted to get rid of this scum, but at that time, he and Wu Tong both knew that this kind of person would not be satisfied just by scolding him or beating him up. He must be punished by the law, so Chen Guang and Wu Tong together decided to slowly collect evidence. It was just that both of them had their own things to do, so it dragged on until now, until today, when he once again appeared in front of Chen Guang. Wu Tong and Chen Guang had said many times that fists and kicks were not the real way to solve problems. But at this moment, Chen Guang couldn't control the evil in his heart when he looked at Su Tao's silhouette. He wanted to smash his fist against Su Tao's head, causing his brains to splatter. So, he swung his fist, in public, under the shocked gazes of hundreds of onlookers. Without hesitation, he threw a punch. This simple punch carried the determination in Chen Guang's heart. Really, if worst came to worst, he would be expelled. If he did not teach this bastard a lesson, Chen Guang really felt that there was no point in continuing to read this book. Now that the law could not punish him, then he would let his fist punish him first. Wang Ren, who was running forward, suddenly felt a hard hit on the back of his head, and his mind went black. That fellow, Chen Guang, really made a move. Wang Ren screamed in his heart, and tried to stagger forward again, but the back of his shirt was suddenly grabbed. "Why are you running?" Chen Guang said coldly behind him. "If you have the guts to do it, then you have the guts to stand here and take it." Chapter 375. Chen Guang, don't mess around. Didn't you want to borrow the equipment? I'll arrange it for you. Wang Ren shouted with a pale face. However, Chen Guang paid no attention to Su Tao and pulled Su Tao's face over. "That matter is not important to me now," Chen Guang said expressionlessly and punched Wang Ren's face again. Wang Ren fell on his back. Blood or teeth stained with blood flew out of his mouth as he swung his head back. Chen Guang was really holding back. He didn't know what would happen if he fully exerted the power of the Kirin arm. There were too many people here, and it started with Hua Ling. If he killed him here, it would be very troublesome, unimaginably troublesome, so he couldn't do that for now. But he could collect some interest. Then Chen Guang pounced on him again and punched the other side of Wang Ren's face. His fist scraped his nose, and there was a faint sound of bones breaking. The bridge of his nose was broken. After 3 punches, Wang Ren was completely unconscious on the ground. Blood came out of his mouth and nose. The place where Chen Guang's fist hit cracked open, revealing the flesh inside. At first, when Hua Ling and Wang Ren were fighting, there were students and teachers who came to separate them. But at this moment, there were hundreds of people surrounding them. They didn't even have time to react, or it could be said that they were scared by Chen Guang's action. Although Chen Guang's actions were something that many students had fantasized about, they couldn't help but feel a chill in their hearts when they saw this scum being beaten up before them one day. Gradually, some of the students who were watching the fun began to retreat. It was a big deal, and it was better to protect themselves. Even some of the teachers who rushed over from the laboratory after hearing the news quietly retreated to the back. If Wang Ren made a fuss to his uncle and the overprotective vice principal found out that he had watched his scumbag nephew get beaten up into a state that was neither human nor ghost, who knew if he would secretly make things difficult for him? Not long after, the people on this side all ran away, but no one cared about Wang Ren, who was lying on the ground. It was obvious how unpopular he was. One of the more courageous young teachers walked at the back. When he saw that there was no one else, he said, "Student Chen Guang, you better not make a move. Otherwise, I advise you to turn yourself in. Don't you know who Wang Ren's uncle is? He's the vice principal of our school." After saying that, the man turned around and ran without looking back, afraid that he would get into trouble. Chen Guang curled his lips indifferently. Since he had already been beaten to this state, it didn't matter anymore. He kicked Wang Ren's stomach again. This guy, who had completely stopped moving, started to tremble on the spot as if he was a toad that had its skin peeled off. Those who were watching from afar felt that Wang Ren deserved what he got, but they still felt a little jealous. Tragic, truly tragic. Just a moment ago, he was still unbridled and arrogant, and the next second, he was beaten like a dead dog. Sigh, it's just that this person is too weak. There's no sense of accomplishment in beating him up, and he's already lying on the ground after 2 or 3 hits. You should at least put up some resistance. Just as everyone left, Xue Jingxi, who had chased Hua Ling, Zhongyu, and the others back to the laboratory, came back alone. When she saw Wang Ren lying on the ground, it was unknown whether he was dead or alive. She was so scared that her face turned pale. She hurriedly went up to check on him and found that he was still breathing. Only then did she feel slightly relieved. Hurry up and leave. Just say that I beat him up. I'm a school teacher. At most, I'll just pay for it. Xue Jingxi pushed Chen Guang fiercely, wanting him to leave. Chen Guang, who had been pretending to be cold and unfeeling, almost laughed at her. Teacher Xue, you're so funny. Look at the situation now. Who's playing with you? Don't think that you can settle such a big matter with money. It's very troublesome. It's not something that can be solved with money. Xue Jingxi saw that he was unwilling to leave and panicked. Then if I leave, you'll be the scapegoat. You're just a PhD student. What kind of position is a counselor? Can you handle it? I just heard people say that Uncle Wang seems to be some kind of vice principal, right? How can you handle it? Besides, so many people saw me hit him. Don't look at how the people nearby have all run away. Who knows how many people are watching from the windows over there and behind the door over there? How can they take the blame for a delicate girl like you? Chen Guang, on the other hand, had thought things through clearly. Zhuo Jingxi's face turned pale. She did not know what to do. Listen to me. This matter has nothing to do with you. It's just a personal grudge between him and I. I don't like him, so I can beat him up if I want. It's that simple. It'll be troublesome if you guys get involved. Believe me, Wang Ren wouldn't dare to do anything to me. It has nothing to do with how much money I have. There's another reason. What you should do now is to do as I said just now and distance yourself from this matter. Besides, I'll just fire you and settle the matter with some compensation. It's nothing. Zhuo Jingxi shook her head violently. It'd be fine if it's just firing you. No, firing you definitely won't do. Don't tell me you'll have to retake the university entrance exam. Your life will be ruined just like that. You might end up in jail. I can't go to jail. I really can't. If you don't leave, I'll have no choice but to kick you out. You don't want those people hiding around to see me slap your butt, do you? Seeing that he really could not get rid of her, Chen Guang decisively came up with this plan. Perhaps he was just trying to take advantage of her. Don't. Please don't. Zhuo Jingxi panicked. At this moment, police sirens suddenly sounded in the campus from afar. Zhuo Jingxi said anxiously, "Someone called the police." Chen Guang nodded. "I did." "Ha. So what? There are so many people watching. I can't just run away, can I?" Not long after, a brand new Jetta police car stopped beside them. Wu Tong got out of the car. As soon as she got out of the car, she saw Chen Guang and Zhuo Jingxi standing at the side. Wang Ren was lying on the ground. Wang Long, the old comrade who used to lead the new, followed behind her bitterly. Comrade Wu Tong was now the deputy chief of the Wenxing branch. Her promotion was really fast. Chen Guang's method of calling the police was also different. He did not call Jiao Jiao, but Wu Tong's cell phone. She came very quickly. "You rascal, I thought you could hide from me forever. I've caught you this time, haven't I?" Wu Tong said cheerfully as she got out of the car. Wang Long, who was beside her, said, "Chief Wu, was there a victim?" Wu Tong rolled her eyes. "Oh, I didn't see him." "Ha." Wang Long was dumbfounded. "You didn't see such a big person." Of course, Wu Tong was lying. "Don't be nervous. I feel that the atmosphere here is too heavy. I'm just trying to liven it up a little." "What kind of victim is he?" "He was just beaten up. It's not a big deal. His name is Wang Ren. He's the person I asked you to collect information on a few days ago. You know what I mean." Wang Long suddenly understood. Oh, actually, Wu Tong had always kept this matter in mind. About a week ago, she had set Wang Ren as the first of her 3 moves as a new official. However, this matter should not have been the responsibility of the police station. It should have been the responsibility of the Anti-Corruption Discipline Inspection Department. However, since others did not care, and a girl's life was involved, Wu Tong used her authority as the deputy chief and her identity as Wu Shan's daughter to take matters into her own hands. No one could say anything about it. Of course, all of this had been carried out in secret, which meant that she had done it in private. Although Wu Tong was impulsive, she was not stupid. She knew that it was best not to make a big deal out of this unless the day she revealed her trump card. When the time came and the conditions were right, she would use it all at once. What was done could not be undone. Naturally, Wang Ren would not be able to clean up the mess. "Can you not drag out the ending so much?" Wu Tong was unhappy. It makes it seem like I'm trying to play favoritism. How can that be? Chief Wu's eyes are like a torch. You hate evil as if it's your enemy. You plan for a rainy day. You are the model of the current police force. Comrade Wang Long said resolutely. Chapter 376. The cruel reality had forced Wang Long, an excellent police officer who was good at his job, to become a flatterer. She was a rookie, then a captain, and now a deputy chief. Comrade Wang Long's fate was tragic enough. How could the gap between people be so big? Of course, it was no wonder that Wu Shan tried his best to promote Wu Tong. The credit of killing 7 international criminals, including Shi Zhou, was not something an ordinary police officer could achieve even in a decade. In addition, Wu Shan handled the situation well. He made it sound like Wu Tong was tricked by the police car and went into the factory. The young police officer risked his life to defend the country's sovereignty. He pretended to be weak, sneaked in alone, and killed all the criminals. In the internal documents, Wu Tong was described as a lone hero. With credit and background, it would be intolerable if Wu Tong did not get promoted. Wang Long was also joking. Putting today aside, Wu Tong's work was indeed upright and plain-spoken. She could endure hardship and was brave enough to charge and break through enemy lines. She finally came close. Chen Guang chuckled. Sis, I didn't hide from you. Aren't you busy, and so am I. Since I'm free today, I asked you to arrest me. Am I not giving you credit? Wu Tong spat at him. Save it. Do you think I don't know that you asked me to clean up your mess? You heartless little brother. Call me when you need me, and treat me like air when you don't need me. Wang Long, who was next to Wu Tong, had goosebumps all over his body. Scary, really scary. Director Wu, who was now called the Iron Judge Wu in the police station, actually spoke in such a tone in front of his brother-in-law. I won't be silenced when I return to the station, right? Then, Teacher Zhua, shall I take Qingguang away? Wu Tong finally noticed Zhua Jingxi, who was standing next to her in a daze. Zhua Jingxi had seen Wu Tong last time and knew that she was the police officer in charge of Qingguang and Pan Zhang's case. She guessed that Wu Tong had a good relationship with Qingguang, but now it seemed that it was very unusual. Zhua Jingxi nodded blankly. Oh, okay. Wang Long, you take care of the aftermath. Send this dead man to the hospital. I'll take the suspect away first. Wu Tong said as she pulled Qingguang towards the police car happily. She had only taken 2 steps when she suddenly remembered something. Oh, right. You weren't crippled, right? Qingguang nodded. I'm not crippled. I know what to do. That's good. It's not a big deal. I can handle it. She watched as Qingguang and Wu Tong got into the police car side by side. It didn't look like they were arresting criminals at all. It was more like 2 acquaintances who had met by chance on the street and were chatting happily. They were going to talk about life somewhere. Wang Long was also in tears. Are you going to show favoritism in front of me? They didn't even put on a fake handcuff. They didn't even make an official article. Seeing that the police car had gone far away, Zhua Jingxi couldn't help but ask, Officer Wang, I'm Qingguang's counselor, Zhua Jingxi. Who is Qingguang and Officer Wu? Sister. Wang Long subconsciously wanted to say brother-in-law, but he immediately felt that something was wrong. First of all, he was older than Wu Tong. Brother-in-law was too embarrassing. He should say brother-in-law. Secondly, this was also a joke in the police station. Wu Tong would never admit it. Of course, she had never denied it, but she couldn't say it in front of outsiders. So he waved his hand. Next, I'm such a genius. You should leave this place quickly. This matter is very complicated, more complicated than you think. I can't say anything yet, but Teacher Zhua, you must not get involved. Wang Long said as he called 120. Chen Guang had already slipped away, so there was no point in Zhua Jingxi staying there. Since the police were in charge of the scene, she also knew that she didn't have to get involved. She could only leave worriedly. In the car, Wu Tong said as she drove, "I've found some things about Wang Ren, but it's only at the level of corruption. Frankly speaking, if Wang Ren was just an ordinary person, this would be enough to convict him, but now it's still not enough. I have to raise the case to the level of a criminal case before I can arrest him." You're a little impulsive today. Chen Guang sat in the front passenger seat. He felt that Wu Tong's words were vaguely familiar. It seemed that after he beat up Ma Xinlin, the president, not long ago, Lu Fei also said the same thing. I can't help it. I just happened to be at the right time, and I couldn't control my hand. Wang Ren has an amazing uncle, I know that. He's the vice principal. His official position isn't as high as your father's, right? Wu Tong pinched his leg. Look at what you're saying. It's as if you can convict someone just because he's a higher official or a lower official. Well, the administrative ranks are really the same. The vice principal of Gokyo University is indeed at the level of a prefectural hall. A school's vice principal has that much power. He can cover the sky with one hand. Chen Guang asked curiously. I can't say that he can cover the sky with one hand, but in this school's territory, that executive vice principal really has the final say. Don't look down on people. Although that old man doesn't seem to have any real power outside, he has a wide range of friends. He has students all over the world. There are also many friends in Yanjing who can help him speak up. There are also many department leaders in Dechuan province who have real power under his tutelage. Or, when they were studying under him, they owed him a favor. Even my father has to give him some face. Wu Tong pointed out the crux of the matter. Chen Guang curled his lips in disdain. What good can this kind of person teach? He's just a fly trying to gain personal gains. But in this world, isn't it easy for a fly trying to gain personal gains? Wu Tong seemed to be mocking herself, but also seemed to be talking about Wang Ren, or perhaps Wang Ren's uncle. Chen Guang sat at the Wenqing police station for as long as a bag of melon seeds, because he really ate a bag of melon seeds while sitting in Wu Tong's office. There was no one else who could treat a criminal as well as him so well. That was why relationships were so important in this world. If it was someone else who injured someone and was brought to the police station, they would not be able to escape the most basic public security punishment. Of course, Wu Tong was not like this usually. Her title as the Iron Judge was not for nothing, but if she did not help Chen Guang, who else could she help? Most of the time, she was just unfair. What's the big deal if I do something selfish once in a while? Wu Tong knew what kind of person Wang Ren was, and there was no obstacle in her heart. Before they left, Wu Tong also told Chen Guang not to pay too much attention to it. Although Wang Ren's uncle was formidable, Wu Shan wasn't a pushover either. The higher they were, the more they wouldn't want to cause a conflict. Perhaps there would be a process of wrangling between Wu Shan and Wang Ren's uncle. For example, your people beat up my nephew, and you want to let it go. Then Wu Shan would make a fuss, saying that it was because your nephew wanted to keep someone else's girlfriend. Anyway, it was all made up. Believe it or not, that was my attitude. But in the end, the matter could not be blown up. Even if the vice principal's network expanded, he would not be able to reach that position for the rest of his life. Wu Shan was different. Everyone knew that he would come to the capital sooner or later. Since Wu Shan went to greet him, Wang Ren's plan was wasted. He deserved it for not being able to control his crotch and getting hot-headed whenever he saw Zhongyu. But Qin Guang and Wu Tong felt that it was not enough. This scumbag should not end up like this. According to Wu Tong, this person should go to jail to answer to the soul of the girl named Ding Lu. According to Qin Guang, this person should die. What Qin Guang said made Wu Tong's hair stand on end. My bottom line is to let him go to jail for 10 years. If he is like what the rumors say, that he will be released for medical treatment after a few months, I will personally send him on his way. No one can stop me. Chapter 377. When she returned to school, she went straight to the laboratory, but it was empty. The experiment could not continue after such a big incident. Xue Jingxi let Zhongyu and the other two go about their own business, but in fact, everyone knew that perhaps today, or perhaps tomorrow, Wang Ren's protective uncle would do something. There were many rumors about Wang Ren and his uncle Su Lijing in the school. Everyone was well aware of it, but no one said anything. Those who knew a little about the inside story could not understand why the famous economist, Mr. Su Lijing, would be so protective of his nephew. Those who knew more about the inside story could vaguely guess that Wang Ren and Su Lijing were uncle and nephew, but that was because of the strict birth control in the early years. From the beginning, Su Lijing had pulled Wang Ren under his sister's name. In fact, Wang Ren was his biological son. Su Lijing was also a person. Back in the 70s and 80s, when he was still young, he gave up many temptations abroad and returned to China. He had a considerable status in the domestic economics field and had done some practical things in recent years. After getting involved in administrative management, he was considered to have taken one step at a time in the school. When he was just over 60, he sat firmly in the position of executive vice president of Gokyo University. He was also quite accomplished academically and was indeed a person who contributed. At the same time, there were internal rumors that he was also a member of the central think tank, but this could not be confirmed. It was only a rumor. But no one was perfect. Perhaps the only blemish in Su Lijing's life was Wang Ren. When Wang Ren was young, he lived with his sister in a small place. Su Lijing's sister was not good at disciplining this fake son, so Wang Ren was rebellious and fought from a young age. He didn't even finish junior high school before he dropped out and mingled in society. He was even sent to prison when Su Lijing went abroad. Originally, he was sentenced to life imprisonment. Later, because Su Lijing returned to China, he contributed a lot and personally acted as a guarantor. It took another 2 years for Wang Ren to be released. Perhaps Su Lijing felt that he owed his nephew too much, so after he was released, he especially spoiled him. 10 years ago, he found an excuse to drag his nephew, who didn't even have a junior high school diploma, into the school. It could be considered as arranging an iron rice bowl for him. As Su Lijing's position and status rose higher and higher, Wang Ren also followed suit. He started as a school police officer and climbed up step by step. Gradually, under Su Lijing's shadow, he became a tyrant in the school and a rat's poop in a pot of soup. He couldn't afford to offend anyone. It was only last semester when Wang Ren ran into Wu Shan's gun because of the incident with Qin Guang that he suffered a slight setback. In the end, he just moved to another place. Wu Shan was well aware of this, but this was the result of his negotiation with Su Lijing. Wang Ren was Su Lijing's biological son, and Qin Guang and Wu Shan were not related at all. There was no need for the two of them to fall out because of the pestering of their juniors. Su Lijing being willing to give Wu Shan face was already very kind of him. It was only because of Wu Shan's amazing potential that Su Lijing was willing to give him face. However, potential did not represent strength. Su Lijing was giving in to Wu Shan, but Wu Shan could not make Su Lijing lower his head completely. Before you actually sat in those positions, no one knew what the next term would be like. Chen Guang found Zhuo Jingxi at her home. When she entered the door, she seemed to have just finished a phone call with someone. Her face was pale, like a frightened bunny. Teacher Zhuo, what's wrong? Chen Guang strode in and felt that Zhuo Jingxi's expression was not right. Zhuo Jingxi shook her head. No, nothing. Chen Guang sat on the sofa. You really don't know how to lie at all. In the end, Zhuo Jingxi could not hide it anymore. The person who had just called was her tutor, Xu Lirong. According to the school's leaders, they originally wanted to directly revoke her doctorate qualifications, but because Xu Lirong insisted on protecting her, the matter was temporarily put on hold. Although Xu Lirong's administrative status was not high, her status in the academic world was not much lower than Su Lizheng's. The two sides wrangled again and finally reached a compromise. They removed Zhuo Jingxi's position as the person in charge of the photocatalyst laboratory team, and removed her qualifications as a tutor that she had fought so hard to obtain. She was temporarily retained as a student, but was not allowed to enter the laboratory. Instead, they arranged for a random company outside and sent her to be a technical consultant for at least a year. She could no longer continue the photocatalyst research that she had been doing for several years. The school did not even need to find any special reasons. They just said that the company had a contract with the school and needed a doctorate student to go there for technical guidance. The laboratory equipment was the school's. If they said they could not use it, then they would not let you use it. Letting you be the laboratory leader was to train you, and they did not take a penny from you. Even if they removed you today, you would not be able to go to anyone to complain. Of course, Chen Guang knew how big a blow this matter was to Zhuo Jingxi, but he did not expect the other party's counterattack to come so quickly and so fiercely. It's all my fault. I didn't think things through. Chen Guang had already tried his best to get Zhuo Jingxi to distance herself from this matter, but she was still implicated. Even if it was just a gust of wind at the edge of the storm, it would still be a devastating blow to her research career. For a person who was obsessed with research, this was indeed painful. Zhuo Jingxi wiped away her tears. It's not your fault. If I were in your shoes, I would have done the same. Chen Guang thought about it and really wanted to tell her, I'll build a laboratory for you. However, before he could say it, Liu Li's voice rang out in his mind. Stop dreaming. I have my eyes on a big project and am in discussion with someone. With the money you have left, it's just enough. Don't even think about using a single cent. He was really unlucky. Why did this lady make a move at this time? The two of them sat there for a while before Zhuo Jingxi seemed to suddenly react. I have to go see my teacher. Chen Guang asked, plead for her. Zhuo Jingxi said as she changed her shoes, no, my teacher must be very sad at this time. I'm the one who made things difficult for her. It was an hour later when she saw Xu Lirong. Old Lady Xu was now 70 years old. Her hair was white, and she was wearing reading glasses as she sat in her study. She was also trembling with anger. On the way here, Zhuo Jingxi had told Chen Guang that the old lady was getting on in years and was always worried that she wouldn't be able to do research for a few more years. Since more than 10 years ago, she had been wholeheartedly focused on photocatalysis, hoping to produce some results before she became too old to be sober. Her laboratory was currently the most advanced among the 5 photocatalysis groups. Now that it had suffered such a disaster, it would definitely be a huge blow to the old lady. She hoped that she could understand when she saw the old lady later. Zhuo Jingxi apologized to the old lady one after another. Old Lady Xu wanted to scold her, but seeing her remorseful and regretful look, she couldn't bear to say anything. She just sighed. Sigh, that bastard Wang Ren came to our academy. This would have happened sooner or later. I've told Su Lijing many times, but it's useless. This can't be blamed on you. Who can be blamed for causing destruction in an academic place? It's all my fault. Teacher Shu, this is all my fault. Shuo Jingxi was still apologizing. Shu Lirong stretched her neck and looked at Chen Guang, who was standing behind her. You're the Chen Guang who hit someone, right? Chen Guang knew that he couldn't avoid it. He thought that he would definitely be scolded, so he shrunk his neck and took a step forward, standing in front of the old lady. It's me. Looking at the old lady's silver hair, her face full of age spots, and her trembling hands and feet, Chen Guang couldn't help but feel a burst of heartache. Chapter 378. When he entered the door, he carefully observed Professor Shu's large study room. The walls were full of bookshelves, and the bookshelves were all full of journals. Thinking about the old woman's age, Chen Guang respected this scholar from the bottom of his heart. The more respect he had, the more ashamed he would be if he caused trouble for others. He even regretted that when he hit Wang Ren, he only thought that he was fearless, but he didn't consider that it would involve so many people, and it would affect the research that the old woman had invested her entire life into. If he had known it would be like this, he would have considered it more. Of course, the most unobtainable thing in this world was knowing it earlier. Unexpectedly, the old woman didn't scold him, but instead laughed. Good hit. I've wanted to hit that grandson for a long time, but I'm too old to hit him. You don't know how angry those retired old guys from the School of Chemical Engineering were. Last month, old Jiang came out of Su Lijing's office for less than 3 days, and he died from anger. Ah! Chen Guang and Shuo Jingxi were shocked. So there was such a thing. The School of Chemical Engineering that accepted Wang Ren was obviously not a monolithic block. There were still some people who understood, but unfortunately, those people were retired. They tried to resist but failed, and they angered an old professor to death. Little Zhuo, you are a talent. This time, it is a setback for you, but it is not all bad. You don't have to worry about showing your face at the company. I've contacted an old classmate overseas. With your current level, you can also enter his son's laboratory in California. My old classmate's son is also quite outstanding. He's a foreign academic leader before he's even 50 years old. He has real skills. You should take advantage of these 2 years to further your studies. Foreign countries are ahead of us in the field of photocatalysts. You should go there and learn. After Professor Shu calmed down, she said so. It turned out that she had already found a way out for Shuo Jingxi. It's a pity that you didn't pass the exam normally. You can't get a degree there, and you still have to come back to get your doctorate. But it doesn't matter. Even if I'm not here at that time, I've already talked to little Han. He can take over my class and finish your doctorate. Professor Shu said with waning interest. Shuo Jingxi immediately burst into tears. Old Madame Shu's words were spoken lightly, but there was a hint of disheartened coldness in her words. The old woman was really hurt. Silly child, don't cry, this setback is nothing. I'm old. If I were young, I wouldn't care about Su Lijing or Wang Ren. I would protect you even if I had to die. But now, I really couldn't hold on any longer. This also reminded me that it was time to consider letting go. It's just a little regretful that before I die, I couldn't really come up with anything. After I die, people will definitely criticize me. Old Lady Shu wasted a lot of the country's money, but she didn't even get any results. Time waits for no one. As Old Lady Shu spoke, her voice started to choke. But it's not your fault, little Zhuo. It's really not your fault. You've already done very well. It's just that you were born 10 years too late. If you and I had fought together 10 years earlier, we would have produced something by now. But it doesn't matter. The happiest thing is that I can take you with me for a period of time in these few years. When you return to China, it doesn't matter if you don't come back. In any case, you have to go further than me. Xue Jingxi burst into tears. The two women, one old and one young, hugged each other and cried bitterly in the study. Perhaps Wang Ren's matter was just the fuse. What really made old Xu sad was that she felt old. For a person who had been studying for his entire life, the saddest thing was not losing to knowledge, but to time. He clearly knew that if he persisted on this path, he would get results sooner or later, but he couldn't live to see that day. How sad it was. Chen Guang could also see that the old woman was really overworked and overworked her brain. She looked like she was in her 70s, but she looked like she was in her 90s. In the time it took to say a few more words, her breathing had become rapid. Perhaps she really didn't have many years left. The room was filled with a sorrowful atmosphere. Chen Guang silently turned his face away. He also felt his eyes moisten. After a long time, the two of them finally calmed down. Xue Jingxi's panic from having to leave the laboratory gradually dissipated. Old Xu turned her gaze to Chen Guang again. Young man, don't blame yourself. Actually, we all hope that someone will really stand up and kick that bastard surnamed Wang out of the school. If this time, because of you, Su Lijing can understand that he should send Wang Ren somewhere else and not let him cause trouble in the school, then you'll really have done a great service. The school is full of honest people who study, and all of them have been trampled on by Wang Ren. Every day, there's someone shitting on your head. How can you study? Evil people should be tortured by evil people. When old Xu said this, Chen Guang also laughed. Ancestor grandmother really knows how to ease people's minds. I'm already regretting that I didn't hit him hard enough. Don't worry, I, Chen Guang, swear here today that even if I'm expelled. Later, if that surnamed Wang still hangs around in the school, I'll specially beat him up. I'll beat him up until he doesn't dare to appear within 10 miles of the school. Old Xu's eyes lit up. Aren't you afraid that Su Lijing will find trouble with you? Chen Guang curled his lips. I'm not afraid. Isn't he just a vice principal? Can he eat me up? Young man, do you have other ideas? Old Xu was a learned person for decades. Perhaps she didn't know much about business, but she had a keen eye for people. She could see through Chen Guang's other plans at a glance. Chen Guang didn't hide it from her. Yes, if we can send him to jail, that would be even better. Old Xu clapped her hands excitedly. Although I'm not very optimistic about you, I support you. When you go back, look for little Han. He's the vice principal of your school. He has some things that might be helpful to you, but you have to do it discreetly. Although little Han is also involved in administration, he's also a learned person. Don't drag him into this. Chen Guang nodded. I understand. When the two left old Xu's house, their moods were much better. Xue Jingxi was still a little choked up. She was just sad about old Xu's old age. But humans were like this. Birth, old age, sickness, and death were the natural cycle of reincarnation. Sickness could be cured, but aging was unstoppable. Teacher has placed all her hopes on me. Xue Jingxi leaned on the E400L passenger seat and sighed. So, Teacher Xue, you have to pull yourself together. It's about learning. It doesn't matter where you do it. Studying abroad isn't bad either. Chen Guang, on the other hand, was delighted. Xue Jingxi wanted to say something but stopped. Chen Guang guessed what she was thinking. Well, it doesn't matter if you admit it or not. Anyway, you're my little mistress now. I know this kind of private study that isn't funded by the government must be very expensive, but don't worry, I can still handle this small amount of money. Shuo Jingxi shook her head fiercely. How can I let you pay for this? No way. That's how you rejected me when I bought you a car. Give up struggling. After the first time, you won't be able to resist the second and third time. Otherwise, how are you going to study abroad? I heard that living expenses in America cost thousands of dollars a month. When you have a foothold abroad, the laboratory will have to pay you, right? When the time comes, if you really can't get over it, then you can pay me back. Shuo Jingxi's face froze. She couldn't refute. At this moment, the two of them still didn't know that Su Lijing's counterattack was not over. Vice Principal Su had indeed reached a compromise with Wu Shan, but this compromise was only limited to Qin Guang. Official Su's anger couldn't burn Qin Guang, but it had to be vented. The more he compromised with Qin Guang, the more it would burn with others. Shuo Jingxi had old Shu to protect her, so she could barely stay in school. The ones who were really hurt were Hua Ling, Ding Lu's former roommate, Zhong Yu, and even Luo Jin. Chapter 379. By the time the two saw Hua Ling at the bottom of the administration building, the northeastern girl had already calmed down. While Shuo Jingxi, Qin Guang, and Mrs. Shu were chatting, Hua Ling was met by the leaders of Gokyo University's graduate program. Her punishment was simple and straightforward, she was dismissed. Wang Ren was still lying in the hospital, and it was unknown if he had woken up. However, the graduate program's quick response was definitely Su Lijing's decision. Hua Ling looked at the two of them and was unusually calm. She said cheerfully, "Actually, I should have gone back to my hometown when I graduated last year. It doesn't matter now. I feel like I'm not as talented as Teacher Zhua when it comes to academics. I might as well go back to my hometown and take the civil service exam. Or maybe I could get a job at a monitoring station." It could be said that she was forcing herself to smile or being open-minded, but after experiencing this incident, Hua Ling was exceptionally calm. Shuo Jingxi wanted to persuade her and express her indignation, but when she saw the punishment notice in Hua Ling's hand, she didn't know what to say. Qin Guang's brows were tightly furrowed. Su Lijing's counterattack had come too quickly and too fiercely. He didn't ask about right or wrong, didn't care about the reason, and didn't care about how it happened. He just used the excuse of beating up and provoking the school's leaders to expel Hua Ling. Everyone knew that the real culprit was Qin Guang, but they could still persuade Hua Ling to leave. Su Lijing had the right to do so, and he found a barely passable reason. It was hard to believe that this was indeed a place for academics. After a while, Zhong Yu also walked out of the administrative building. She was also holding a piece of paper in her hand. She looked like she was in a dilemma. Before the gloomy Qin Guang could ask anything, Zhong Yu smiled and said, "It doesn't matter if I get a major demerit or probation." Fuck. Qin Guang couldn't help cursing as he continued, "Is that Su Lijing a madman? Is he going to wipe out the entire project team? I don't know if he's going to wipe them out, but Hua Ling. Qin Guang. Why am I so unlucky to meet the two of you?" At this time, Luo Jin also walked down from the administrative building. Obviously, he was not spared. Seeing that everyone had turned to look at him, Luo Jin's handsome face darkened. He stared at Qin Guang and said, "Are you satisfied now? Happy now?" Would he be satisfied just because he had a big fist? Look at us now. Teacher Zhua has been sent out, Hua Ling has been expelled, Zhong Yu has been put on probation, and I've been given demerits. It's all your fault. If Qin Guang had really been fired, he might have been able to refute Luo Jin. However, the current situation was that nothing had happened to Qin Guang. It was the others who were unlucky. This made Qin Guang really speechless. Unexpectedly, Zhuo Jingxi, Hua Ling, and Zhong Yu shouted in unison, "Shut up." Then, the three of them said in a different order, "I don't care." As soon as they finished speaking, the three of them realized that the other two had the same idea as them. They couldn't help but laugh out loud. Luo Jin stood there dumbfounded. He really couldn't understand why Qin Guang had been here for a few days, but he had become the outsider of the research team. Such a big thing happened, and you guys don't blame Qin Guang at all. He looked at Zhuo Jingxi with some pain. No matter what, the research team was gone. He really couldn't find a reason to continue staying by Zhuo Jingxi's side. He still had a lot of ways to retreat. He didn't have the determination or courage to follow Zhuo Jingxi to the company to waste time. He felt that he was a talented researcher. Although he really liked Zhuo Jingxi, he couldn't throw his life away. One day, when he became a big shot in academia, he could help her. She would definitely be touched, right? Teacher Zhuo. Luo Jin still wanted to say something. Zhuo Jingxi waved her hand disinterestedly. She could see that Qin Guang's expression was a little sad. For the first time, she felt annoyed with Luo Jin, this useful research dog. Luo Jin, go. A demerit isn't a punishment that can't be removed. You don't have to care too much about it. Don't call me teacher. I won't bring the lab anymore. After she finished speaking, she pulled Qin Guang away. Hua Ling and Zhong Yu followed, leaving Luo Jin alone. Luo Jin was at a loss. He just wanted to criticize Qin Guang. He thought that the others would share the same hatred as him. He didn't expect to be pushed out of the small group. Did I do something wrong? Wasn't it Qin Guang's impulsiveness that caused us all to be unlucky? It was really difficult for a person with an EQ like him to understand this problem. It was hard to say for others, but Hua Ling's expulsion really couldn't be blamed on Qin Guang. She was the first person to rush over. Hua Ling's fate was sealed even without Qin Guang beating up Wang Ren. On the other hand, Qin Guang felt indignant in his heart. He was even willing to be fired. Perhaps he wouldn't feel so unhappy in his heart. He was the one who made a move, but someone else had to bear the consequences. On the contrary, it was worse than a knife cutting into his body. I'm the one who has nothing to fear. You can't hurt me, but you hurt others. The punishment had been decided. Unless Su Lijing changed his mind, no one could change the result. Zhuo Jingxi and Zhong Yu were comforting Hua Ling in the hotpot restaurant. Hua Ling casually said that it wasn't a big deal. In fact, she had long wanted to go back and take the civil servant exam. Qin Guang, on the other hand, made a call to Wu Shan from outside the restaurant. Although Qin Guang did not meet with Wu Shan many times, he had a pretty good impression of this uncle of his. Hence, Qin Guang intended to plead with Wu Shan. After all, he had saved Wu Tong's life, so Wu Shan should give him face and negotiate with Su Lijing, right? On the other end of the line, Wu Shan seemed a little tired. He didn't even need Qin Guang to say it out loud. He already knew why Qin Guang was calling. Qin Guang. You're calling to ask about Su Lijing, aren't you? Don't worry, I've talked to him, and he won't pursue the matter. I have to say, you're really ruthless, beating up that cheap nephew of his. I'm afraid he won't be able to leave the hospital for at least half a month. I heard that his nose is comminuted. He called Qin Guang, not little Qin, to show that they were close. Qin Guang nodded and said, "Thank you, Uncle Wu." Wu Shan adjusted his state of mind and laughed heartily. There's no need to thank me. I owe you the life of my daughter, so it's what I should do. Hearing Wu Shan's hearty voice, the haze in Qin Guang's heart dissipated a little. He swallowed his saliva and said tentatively, "Uncle Wu, there are still some things that happened. I wasn't affected, but my classmates, my teacher, Wu Shan was silent for a while, obviously trying to organize his words. If someone like him had to organize his words, the matter was indeed not as simple as it seemed. After a long time, Wu Shan's voice came again. I understand what you mean. As soon as he said this, Chen Guang's heart skipped a beat. What followed next was probably a but, right? But I really tried my best in this matter. I can indeed negotiate with Su Lijing, and I can get him to make appropriate concessions, but there's a limit to the concessions. Do you understand what I mean? As expected, the hope in Chen Guang's heart gradually dimmed. Chapter 380. On the other side, Wu Shan's straightforwardness disappeared as he paused briefly before he continued. Wang Ren is Su Lijing's son, and Chen Guang is Wu Tong's benefactor. Our relationship is equal, and Wang Ren and Su Lijing's relationship is also equal. Su Lijing and I are also equal, but the others aren't. So it won't be easy for us to continue discussing this matter. Let's end this matter here. Although Su Lijing is protective of his children, he's still my elder. He's also a bit of a scholar and won't go too far. But you can't block all the ways he can vent his anger, right? There are many paths in life. You should talk to your teacher and classmates and resolve the conflict. Okay, sorry to bother you. Since Wu Shan had already spoken, Chen Guang silently hung up the phone. He couldn't help. Chen Guang knew very well that Wu Shan really couldn't help. Or maybe he didn't know. Actually, that wasn't the case. When he talked to Wu Tong, he mentioned teacher Zhua and the others. Would Wu Tong not mention it to Wu Shan? Of course not. So Wu Shan didn't forget but chose to ignore. Although Su Lijing didn't have any real power, he had a high status. Although his position was at the top, his connections were everywhere. Wu Shan was a young politician. Although he had a bright future, he didn't have enough experience. In addition, Wu Shan had his own difficulties when negotiating with Su Lijing. Su Lijing said that he was his nephew, but everyone knew that it was his son. Wu Shan wanted to speak up for Chen Guang, but because he had to avoid the broken world, he couldn't tell him how important Chen Guang was to him. So he could only say that he was Wu Tong's friend. The relationship between a son and a daughter wasn't equal, and Wu Shan only said those words to make Chen Guang feel better. In both Wu Shan's and Su Lijing's eyes, Su Lijing was open-minded and magnanimous. He made appropriate concessions and even did Wu Shan a big favor. Chen Guang understood that if he asked Wu Shan to protect Zhua Jingxi and the others, it would be a slap in Su Lijing's face. This favor was too big and he might not be able to sell it. However, the matters of the world were not things that could be resolved just because one could understand reason. In Chen Guang's opinion, if he was in Wu Shan's shoes, he would definitely protect everyone without any hesitation. The reason was simple: Wang Ren deserved what he got, and his retribution was far from enough. How could Su Lijing be called a scholar? In order to protect his child, he had cut off Zhua Jingxi's career as a researcher, expelled Hua Ling, put Zhong Yu on probation, and recorded a demerit on Luo Jin. All of this was revenge. There was nothing scholarly about him. Wasn't it said how many contributions one had made, how many books one had written, and how great one's reputation was? If one's conduct was already crooked, how could one talk about learning? Therefore, by protecting Zhua Jingxi and the others, he was protecting justice and justice, not a favor. Of course, Chen Guang knew that this was just his opinion. Wu Tong had already said that Wu Shan was a politician, and a politician had to keep climbing up the ranks. He wouldn't easily make enemies, and every decision he made represented an exchange of benefits. Perhaps, becoming enemies with Su Lijing, the elder he spoke of, might even affect his career as a politician. Therefore, he felt that he had done his best to protect himself. Su Lixing had already given in twice, so he couldn't be too aggressive anymore. Chen Guang clenched his phone tightly and sighed in his heart. As expected, I can't be a politician. But should I just accept this loss? Seeing that the three women had already started clinking glasses one after another, Chen Guang could see the disappointment hidden under the surface. Chen Guang clenched his fists tighter and tighter. I won't accept this. Since I can't count on Wu Shan, I have to use my own methods to solve the problem. In the past, he didn't really understand Wu Tong's attitude towards Wu Shan, and he always felt that it was wrong for her to treat her father like that. Now, Chen Guang could more or less understand it. Having a politician as a family member was sometimes quite painful. But in his heart, Chen Guang didn't blame Wu Shan. As a politician, he had already done his best. At the end of the day, Chen Guang was still too weak, so he could only seek help from others when he encountered this kind of situation. For example, Ma Sunlin, who Zhu Jifa ran into when he was borrowing a loan, was also the same. If Lu Fei and the others hadn't come at the right time, Chen Guang would have been in endless trouble after he flipped out. If he had Wu Shan's status today, he wouldn't need to seek help from others. He would be able to stand on the opposite side of Su Lixing, confront him head-on, and negotiate with him. Relying on Wu Shan's protection, there was a layer of relationship between them. No matter how beautiful Wu Shan's words were, it was ultimately not his own business. Su Lixing would only give Wu Shan some face by letting one person go and killing the other four. If it was his own business, he could justifiably use 120% of his strength. Today's situation wouldn't be like this, and the other party would also think twice. With a layer of separation, if he could only use 70% of his strength, he could only protect himself. If he forced himself to use 120% of his strength, it would be as bad as not doing enough, and the conflict would intensify. As for how to strengthen himself, in short, the three worlds of politics, business, and academia had to occupy a position. Su Lixing's strength lay in the fact that he had spread his influence in the political world and dominated the academic world. Wu Shan's strength lay in the fact that he stood at a certain height in the political world at a young age. Chapter 381. I want to be the kind of person who can control the fate of others with a single word. I want to have the power to look up to heaven and earth and not have to bow down to anyone. But that was a matter for the future. This time, since Wu Shan's face was no longer useful, and Chen Guang really did not want to bow down, he decided to simply smash his head against Su Lixing. Even if he had to bleed, he had to let Su Lixing know how powerful he was. When Chen Guang returned to the store, the three women were already drunk, and Hua Ling was narrating many things with tears in her eyes. At this moment, Chen Guang finally understood why she lost control of her emotions. He never thought that Ding Lu and Hua Ling were roommates. There were 4 girls in a dorm, and Ding Lu ended her fragile life hastily. The other 3 girls in the same dorm, on the other hand, received the recommendation for postgraduate studies in their second year, and never missed out on scholarships during their undergraduate years. The school was trying to cover up something with benefits, it was self-evident. Hua Ling and the other 2 girls spent 4 whole years on the road paved by Ding Lu's blood and life. He did not know how the other 2 girls were doing, but Hua Ling's heart had been in pain for 4 whole years. It was self-evident how depressed she was. No wonder she always said she didn't want to do postgraduate studies. If it was Chen Guang, he probably wouldn't even be able to stay there for a day. There are a lot of rumors about Xiao Lu, but I can tell you that only half of them are true. I've been hiding this in my heart for 4 years. I can't hold it in anymore. Many people think that Xiao Lu voluntarily slept in Wang Ren's bed, but let me tell you, one day, Xiao Lu told us that Wang Ren only asked her to go outside the school for a simple talk, but after she came back, she cried non-stop. I asked for a long time before I found out that she wasn't willing at all. She was drugged by Wang Ren. The school didn't allow us to say it, so they kept coaxing us. Su Lijing also knows about this. He knows who I am. If I didn't meet Teacher Zhua, I wouldn't even want to do postgraduate studies. I'm living in pain every day. Now that 4 years have passed, Su Lijing also knows that it's useless for us to say anything. They can expel me if they want to, I don't really care. But I just hate people like Wang Ren. Why doesn't anyone give him the retribution he deserves? Guoling gulped down a big mouthful of white wine and almost coughed up blood. Before she collapsed, she slammed the table and said. Zhongyu also slammed the table. Scum! Scum! Bastard! Then, Zhongyu also collapsed. Zhua Jingxi drank a little less than the two girls, but she was also drunk. She first looked at Hualing and Zhongyu, and no one knew what she was thinking. Suddenly, she turned to look at Chen Guang, who was sitting next to her, and hugged him fiercely. Why is it so hard to be an innocent person? Then, she began to bawl. She did not know how many times she had cried today. Zhua Jingxi had never been such a weak woman, but this time, she was truly hurt by the cruelty of reality. Chen Guang didn't avoid her at all. He turned around and hugged her. After a long time, he whispered in her ear, Teacher Zhua, don't worry. I will give all of you an explanation. You won't leave the lab, and Hualing won't be fired. This is all I can do for now, but sooner or later, I will give all of you an explanation. Good and evil will be repaid. Chen Guang never made promises easily. Even if Zhua Jingxi, who was already drunk, didn't remember what he said, he had to keep his promise since it came from his mouth. Stopping Zhua Jingxi, who still wanted to pour herself more wine, Chen Guang sullenly drank a mouthful of wine. It was exceptionally bitter. Of the 4 people, 2 were so drunk that they fell asleep. Zhua Jingxi was also so drunk that she couldn't walk properly, but at least she could still stand up straight. Chen Guang spent a lot of effort to hold Hualing and Zhongyu in each of his arms. Then, he let Zhua Jingxi walk unsteadily in front. Under the envious and jealous gazes of many people, he finally sent Hualing and Zhongyu back to their dormitory. Seeing Zhongyu and Zhua Jingxi go upstairs with the help of their roommates, Chen Guang let out a sigh of relief. The strange looks he received on the way back were really quite uncomfortable. Chen Guang's hard work for the day wasn't over yet. He still had to send Zhua Jingxi home. Perhaps it was because of the cold wind blowing on her head on the way back, but Zhua Jingxi was getting more and more drunk. She just waved her hand. I can't walk anymore. Alright, let's carry her back. It's much easier to carry one person. Chen Guang, do you think people like Wang Ren should go to hell? Zhua Jingxi mumbled as she lay on his back. Chen Guang nodded. Yes, they should go to hell. As soon as he finished speaking, he heard snoring behind him. Zhua Jingxi had already fallen asleep. After arriving at her house, Chen Guang spent a lot of time to settle her down. She was so drunk, and he didn't dare to leave her alone at home. He went to the living room, turned on her computer, and started to work on his own matters. Chen Guang had a rough plan in his mind. If it worked, he really didn't need Wu Xian's help to tire Su Lijing out. Logging into Weibo, it had been a few days since he posted the Dota video of Windrunner. However, this time, he didn't let Jin Jiang and Zhongyu repost it. Although the 2 girls had the urge to do so, they held it in. With the same ID, the 2 girls reposted it once in a while. It could be explained that they were attracted by his video, but if this person reposted every single one of his posts, who knew how much gossip would come out of it? Chen Guang also told the two girls that with their help, he had already taken the first step on his road to being an internet celebrity, and that was enough. In the future, this ID might become more and more conspicuous, and there might even be more and more people trying to dig out the true identity of the almighty Superman. Therefore, it was best for the two of them to distance themselves from their relationship on Weibo and not get involved again. If they were asked in the future, they could at least lie to the media. The two girls faintly felt that it was a little funny. Only 1 million fans, far from being a real internet celebrity. However, the two of them didn't point out Chen Guang's arrogance, and only said, "As long as you're happy." In the end, the game was still limited by the rules of the game itself. No matter how eye-catching the maneuvers were, it was difficult for people to see how much was beyond the limits of human beings. Moreover, the audience of the Dota video wasn't wide, so this video didn't cause much of a stir on the internet. It only circulated among the Dota players for a while. After all, this was the first person's view of the only godly player in the national server so far. In half a month, the Weibo fans of this almighty Superman increased from nearly 1 million to 1.2 million, an increase of 200,000. Compared to other internet celebrities, it was a drop in the bucket, but this increase was already higher than the total number of fans of most game streamers. Even in his private messages, live streaming websites began to invite him to be a streamer. Considering that he had to register with his real name to be a streamer, and the income wasn't so high that he couldn't refuse, Chen Guang wasn't tempted at all. After thinking about it, he called Wang Qing and asked him to send the Xiangjiang car racing documentary that he had secretly produced to his email. He wanted to delete the front and back parts and only keep the scene of him wearing a mask and sitting in the car. At the same time, he wanted to cut off the part about selling the car and only keep the most important part about racing. He wanted to increase the influence of his Weibo account as fast as possible. Water could carry a boat, but it could also capsize it. Using the power of public opinion to make Su Lijing feel afraid was his first step. About half an hour later, Wang Qing sent the video over. After seeing that there were no problems, Chen Guang directly posted it. The title of the video was, "I sharpened the pencil, I drove the car, I'm the almighty Superman, I'm the almighty Superman." Below was the caption, "I guarantee with my integrity that this is indeed me." If you like this video, please forward it, spread it, and follow it. Chapter 382. After posting the video, Chen Guang constantly refreshed his Weibo. As he looked at the reposts, the number of comments gradually increased. Usually, he was a rather casual person and rarely did anything with a strong sense of purpose. But tonight, he was different. 5 minutes later, there were 3,000 replies and 8,000 reposts. 20 minutes later, there were 8,000 replies and 20,000 reposts. An hour later, there were 16,000 replies and 40,000 reposts. Similar to the last time, the driving skills he showed in Hong Kong were also incredible, beyond human understanding, and more down-to-earth than sharpening a pencil. There were not many people who deliberately practiced sharpening pencils. But when it came to driving, although not everyone could drive, everyone had sat in a car before. In addition, there was one more topic of debate among the netizens below. According to usual practice, some people first questioned the authenticity of the video. After all, these scenes could hardly be seen even in a movie like The Fast and the Furious. Then, when the authenticity of the video was verified by the technical geeks and the fans who witnessed the miracle that day, and gradually confirmed that it was completely true, a new theory arose. Was this Weibo user called Almighty Superman the same person in the car? This also caused widespread controversy. But the appearance of the V Special Agent Team mask showed that the credibility of his statement was still very high. An hour and a half later, after the initial promotion by fans, this Weibo ushered in the second wave of explosion after a slow brewing. More and more Weibo users who had almost forgotten about Almighty Superman suddenly remembered this person. After watching this video, more and more internet celebrities used their own channels to inquire about the authenticity of the news. They knew that this was indeed the racing god of this generation who had been crowned a god in the circle some time ago, so they took the initiative to repost it. In fact, it was the first time that many internet celebrities saw this video. Perhaps some people had heard of the story of the Xiangjiang car gambling race, but the race organizers did not release the live video of that day to the public. Without some special channels and connections, it was impossible to get the video. After all, the car gambling race was an underground race that did not see the light of day. According to the usual style of the organizers, once this kind of video appeared on the internet, they would take the initiative to block it. But this time, they did not do so and acquiesced. At this time, the number of comments on this Weibo post had skyrocketed to 30,000, and the number of reposts had reached 100,000. Uncle Ching, who was far away in Hong Kong, even called to inquire about the situation. He was worried that Chen Guang's video had been stolen. After confirming that it was Chen Guang who did it, Uncle Ching stopped asking about it. He just found it funny that Chen Guang had great power, but he did such a trivial thing. Then he told Chen Guang that the organizer of the car race had just called to inquire about the situation. Uncle Ching regarded this matter as child's play, but Chen Guang didn't think so. He just smiled as he looked at the influence of his Weibo account. The light in his eyes became more and more scorching. Even Jiang Yage and Jin Shirue might not be able to achieve such a skyrocketing number of comments and reposts, let alone Chen Guang's number of followers was only a few tenths of those two. However, Chen Guang managed to do it. His videos weren't like Jiang Yage's, which didn't have any substance. Instead, they contained genuine high-quality content that could make the blood of others boil and make them worship him. Before lying on the sofa to sleep, Chen Guang looked at the number of his fans. In 3 hours, it had skyrocketed from 1.2 million to 1.5 million. There would be some follow-up effects tomorrow and the day after. Before the next video was uploaded, it might increase to nearly 3 million fans, which was enough. As a new internet celebrity, the number of this living person's fans was enough to crush most of his peers on Weibo. The next morning, Shuo Jingxi, who had a hangover, woke up faintly. She looked up at her watch and found that it was already past 9 o'clock. Subconsciously, she jumped up from the bed and planned to rush to the bathroom to wash up. As a result, as soon as she walked out of the bedroom door, she remembered that she no longer had to go to the laboratory. Suddenly, her heart became empty. She turned her head again and saw that Chen Guang, who had stayed up until midnight, was still sleeping on the sofa. The empty feeling in her heart inexplicably disappeared. She didn't wake him up. Shuo Jingxi gently washed her face, then closed the kitchen door, fried 3 eggs, cooked a pot of porridge, and made some shredded potatoes. Only then did she bring everything out to wake Chen Guang up to eat. I have some things to do later. Teacher Zhuo, what are your plans for today? Chen Guang, who was used to eating buns and soy milk, was happy to suddenly have 2 love-fried eggs to eat early in the morning. Shuo Jingxi held her chin and thought for a while. I'll catch up on my English. After I go abroad, if I can't make ends meet for the first few months, I'll really need you to support me. Once she accepted this setting and was stripped of her identity as Chen Guang's tutor, the grudge in her heart towards the teacher-student relationship unknowingly disappeared. Although she was a little shy when she said this, she didn't try to avoid it. Chen Guang thought for a while. What if I have the opportunity to not leave the laboratory? Shuo Jingxi heard this and was happy at first, but then she shook her head. You don't believe me. Shuo Jingxi continued to shake her head. It's not that I don't believe it. It's just that I'm a little disappointed with the current situation of domestic scientific research. Even if the school changes its decision, I still want to go out and explore. In layman's terms, the world is so big, and I want to see it. I'll just take it as a way to relax, and also as a way to study. In the past, I couldn't let go of the laboratory, and I didn't have money. Isn't this just right? It's a rare opportunity. As she said this, she looked at Chen Guang a little embarrassedly. When she realized that she was really prepared to accept his sponsorship without any psychological barriers, even she felt that it was unbelievable. If that's the case, that's good. Chen Guang didn't comment. If it wasn't for the fact that he had so many things on his mind, he might have noticed the obvious change in Shuo Jingxi's attitude and took the opportunity to tease her. Oh, right, don't stir up any more trouble. Go back to school and comfort Walling. Although she's a carefree person, I'm sure she's not satisfied. Chen Guang nodded. Don't worry, I'll go find her. After leaving Shuo Jingxi's house, Chen Guang didn't go back to school immediately. Instead, he went straight to the water bar opposite Wenqing Branch and asked for a private room. He then called Wu Tong and told her to find him at the water bar after work at noon. At noon, Wu Tong, who had changed into casual clothes, sat down with a stack of documents in her hands. Chen Guang took a look and couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Although Wang Ren's table manners were ugly in school, when he was in the Jinhuan school, most of the time, he would take meat from the students' mouths. He said that it was corruption, but this kind of thing usually didn't leave any substantial evidence. It wasn't until after he went to the School of Chemical Engineering that the equipment purchase orders for the School of Chemical Engineering showed a relatively high price in the past few months. It could vaguely be considered corruption, but there was no substantial evidence. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.